you to lift me up so high, high, a place that no one's ever been. Take me to oblivion.
Hello and welcome! It is Team Modern Super League time once again. I'm Randy Bueller, joined by Brian Brown-Duin. How are things going, Brian?
Great. Ready to battle tonight and hopefully knock out Reed Duke from being able to win yet another Super League. So
it is quite the matchup. The losers bracket has gotten intense. You guys lost the 4-3 heartbreaker to CFB that, I mean, somebody was going to have to lose. Reed's team has got Nassif, Logan Nettles. They lost a close 4-3 match. So, yeah, you got to go at least 1-1 to keep playing. So one of you guys is going to be 0-2 by the end of the night. And be sad to see you go, whoever it is. Now, go ahead. You've seen the decks. What are you looking forward to tonight?
So I have this Grixis control deck, or mid-range deck, sorry, that I've been working on. So I think it's favored versus all 5 of their decks, which I don't think my teammates will agree with that, but I'm looking forward to busting that out at some point and seeing if I can put my money where my mouth is on that one.
That's awesome. Speaking of people putting their money where their mouth is, I hear Seth has been messing around with this Smallpox deck for a while.
Yeah, he suddenly got on the kick of Smallpox, and he was just jamming it all weekend long. Brad and I went to play in some local team event in North Carolina, and Seth was just testing Pox all day while we were off doing that. So we'll see how it goes. He's starting off with it, so hopefully he can just run the table with it. Who knows?
Yeah, because that is the deck you guys are going to kick off with. I know it's definitely the deck list that caught everybody's eye when the list got posted yesterday. But first match, it is going to be Seth Manfield playing for Team Genesis. It is going to be Gabriel Nassif playing for Pamplemousse. And yeah, it's time. We get to see it. Seth is going to put up the Smallpox deck. Now, so he believes in it. Do you believe in it?
I'll plead the fifth on that, actually.
I think you gave us your answer. So this is going to be fun to watch either way, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. So one of the reasons that we decided for Seth to lead with this is because we weren't sure that we'd ever play it if we didn't start with it. So we figured we'll throw it out there and maybe he can do some things with it.
That's awesome. So the way this works, if you haven't been to one of these Team Super Leagues before, it's 3 versus 3 teams. And both teams submitted 6 different decks yesterday. They had the opportunity to ban one of the other team's decks. So now they've each got 5 decks left today. And basically, we're going to play best 4 out of 7. First team to 4 wins. They win the team series. And in this particular case, they advance to the playoffs as a 1-1 team. They'll be playing another 1-1 team for a spot in the top 4 next month. Now, you saw the list from Pamplemousse. And what were your thoughts when it came to deciding what deck you were going to ban?
It was actually a pretty easy decision to ban the Valakut deck. We felt like it was pretty good against basically all of our decks, including even our Lantern deck, which usually Lantern I think is favored versus Valakut, but they knew that we'd be bringing it, so they had like a main deck acidic slime and stuff. So we figured we didn't want to just have them beat all our decks with that deck, so we banned that one.
Now, what were you expecting? Anything in particular to get banned by Pomplamoose?
Yeah, we were like close to 100% that they'd ban Bogles. Just felt like it was pretty good against most of their decks, and nobody gets to play Bogles in the Super League, so we knew that like with that history behind it, that it was clear that that was going to happen.
They're never slippery enough. I love that tweet you sent earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see Seth just bogle some people, but unfortunately, maybe next time we'll just keep throwing it in there every time, and maybe one day it'll sneak through.
I mean, look, that's how you get to play the other 5 decks, right? If there hadn't been a Bogles deck to ban, maybe they'll be like, "What is this smallpox thing? I don't want to get blindsided by this."
Exactly.
Awesome. Now, we are back this week. There is actually going to be a second Super League show this week. I want to talk for a minute about the schedule, just to make sure everybody knows what's going on. Last week, we had some internet issues. First Super League night I think we're in year 4 now. It's the first time we lost a night to internet issues. So I don't know. If I'm being honest, I feel like it was a pretty good run. But we did postpone last week's show. It was particularly tough because we had the international team, it's already midnight 1 a.m. for them, and there's an internet issue. So we just postponed last week's show to next week. If you were looking for it on YouTube, that's why you couldn't find it. Hasn't happened yet. Come back same time, same place tomorrow, and we will have the match between the International Alliance and Team Madison. So back-to-back Super League nights make this kind of a fun week. And that works out to be the other elimination match as well. Those teams are the other 2 teams that lost in round 1. So we kick off with a couple elimination matches, and then coming up next week and the week after, we'll have kind of the winner's bracket, if you will. Second round of a Swiss. Feels like a winner's bracket. Where teams playing to get that bye straight into the top 4. Lots of Super League. Should be fun. And you're looking... So... Seth Manfield's going to be playing first for you guys. You've decided to kick off with the smallpox deck. It is Gabriel Nassif on the other side. Does that put you on a specific deck? Do you have a sense of what he might be bringing?
Yeah, we basically kind of like pigeonholed them into specific decks. Like we figured Reed would play the Temur Moon deck or the Jund deck. We put Logan on playing the blue-black control deck or maybe Jund as well. And then we figured Nassif would be playing Hollow One and maybe the colorless Eldrazi deck. So I'm guessing that he'll probably start with, I would guess Hollow One, but maybe colorless Eldrazi. So I don't know. We'll see if that is what happens.
Do you have any idea how those decks match up against smallpox?
Actually, I do.
Okay.
So we played a couple. So both the last 2 weeks, our opponents had Hollow One as one of their deck choices. And so we played some matches versus Hollow One just to kind of get a feel for it. And I was always the Hollow One pilot, and I just never lost a match with that deck to anything. So it's a little bit we're a little bit nervous about Hollow One because we just can never lose. We can never beat it with anything. So
well, it turns
see how
out
that goes.
Nassif is in fact going to be playing the Hollow One deck.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe Seth has some ley lines in his sideboard. Maybe he'll get lucky. We'll see.
Fair enough. Now, if you never lose with the Hollow One deck, it must not be that bad, or you would have banned that one out, right?
Yeah. So we are hoping that we can beat it with either Lantern or Grixis, but that's no guarantee. I mean, the deck's super explosive and sometimes can really destroy the opponent's hand too with Burning Inquiry. So right. No deck's really like unbelievably good against them, but I think that Grixis and Lantern are both a little bit favored, but not 100% sure on that.
And those sound like your 2 decks, in fact.
Yeah, they are. We also have main deck Worships in our little kid deck, so we could maybe win a game that way. Classic troll aesthetic Worship, but this time with Thrun, the last troll. But
Hollow One doesn't have anything against a Worship, does it?
They have 2 Collective Brutality, which are life loss. So
sure. Okay.
Yeah, we played a few games. I played a few games against Seth playing that deck, and I just kept ripping Collective Brutality when he was at 1 with Worship in play. So who knows? We'll see.
Awesome. Well, I think we have gotten Gab to stop streaming and actually come get ready to play his match. I know daylight savings time has kicked in our part of the world, but not actually kicked in Europe. So welcome to those of you who may be surprised that we're on an hour earlier than we normally are, including, Gabe Nassif. We'll be up in our first match shortly. Now, I know you guys lost a heartbreaker last time around. Was there any, post-match diagnosis? Was there anything that you guys wish you had done differently in that match, or any learnings about the format you had?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that well, for one, I had a little bit of regrets that I think I could have maybe won that match against Ifro playing Ponza with Lantern. I'm not sure, but I feel like I messed up game 3 somehow. So I never went back and watched that one, but I think if I went back and watched, I'd find a way that I could have won that game. But we also had a decision at the end there where we could play Death Shadow or Jeskai versus Red Green Eldrazi, and we kind of assumed that the Jeskai deck was just like 40% versus every single one of their decks. So we were planning on not playing it at all, but I think in hindsight we should have played it there because maybe it would have actually done pretty well against that deck, whereas the Death Shadow deck kind of just got steamrolled.
Interesting. Yeah, I know Eric felt like his Ponza matchup against Lantern was amazing, but I mean, you did get the one game, so
yeah, actually,
the second one.
Yeah, I was like 100% sure that the Ponza deck was their worst matchup for Lantern by a huge amount. Wow. I wasn't sure if they knew that because sometimes it's hard to identify like what's good or bad against Lantern just on a glance. But I felt like I win game 1 almost 100% of the time, and it's very difficult for me to win any of the post-board games. So I was hoping that they wouldn't go to that deck, but when they did, I was like, this is going to be rough.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was basically the same analysis I heard from Eric, that he thought, he couldn't win game 1, but the sideboarded games were so lopsided in his favor that he was still a favorite overall.
Yeah, I think like my only chance is actually kind of what happened to just find a surgical for Ancient Grudge and hope to get there that way, and I did that, and I still lost. So at this point, I don't even know anymore,
Fair enough. So our players should be, yeah, Eric's agreeing with this in the chat, almost a winnable game 1, but gets real nice. Players should be just about ready. We will be kicking off. I don't know if we can look at the deck list for this first matchup. That'd be great to be able to see. You guys can see them in chat. ! Deck list command will bring them up. It is going to be Gab on Hollow One against Seth on Smallpox. Haven't heard an update, but hopefully we will have those players. There we go. There's the Hollow One deck. Now, is this just the same deck we saw the Japanese do so well with at the Pro Tour, or have you noticed any tweaks Gabe and Pomplamoose have made to this?
Yeah, I'm not actually that great at remembering deck lists, so I can't say exactly what's been changed. I know there's no Grim Lavamancers, which was a card that was in there for a while. And then they have an Engineered Explosives and some Molten Rains, which I'm not sure if that's standard or not. But like I know that Big Game Hunters and Ancient Grudges are pretty classic. They upped the number on Grudge probably because they knew I was going to be playing Lantern. But other than that, I think other than missing the Grim Lavamancers, I think it's mostly straight, like pretty standard list.
Makes sense. Now, I'd love to take a look at the Smallpox list if we can see that while we're waiting for the match to get set up. Because I have not seen a Smallpox deck in a while. I mean, you see people mess around with it on the edges, but it feels like it's, tier 3 in Modern or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's tier and then like some number I can't really even count to. I'm not sure where it falls. I haven't seen this deck in quite some time. I don't even know where Seth had the idea for this to bring this one back, but yeah, I'm not sure.
So what's the logic behind it when he's pitching it? No, guys, really, this deck's going to be great. Here's what I can do. What's the pitch he's making?
Oh, there really wasn't much of a pitch. It was just that he thought it was going to be good. Well, we thought that they were going to bring a lot of like mid-range style decks to the tournament, which is pretty much what they actually did do. And I guess this deck theoretically is pretty good against those decks. So, I mean, we'll have to see if it plays out that way in practice. But I think this deck would be pretty good against like Jund and Blue-Black Control and things like that.
Fair enough. Two different flavors of Soren
Yeah,
and a Liliana.
I don't know where like Seth had just multiple decks that just randomly had Soren Lord of Innistrad in them, so I don't know where Seth's Soren kick came from, but he's really big on Soren here. So
It's almost like a black-white tokens shell. I mean, I've seen a lot of these cards in, what people would call black-white tokens. I mean, if you ignore the card Smallpox itself, it feels almost like a tokens deck.
yeah, it's kind of like a hybrid between the two. It's like the Bitter Blossom, Lingering Souls, Planeswalker shell of tokens, and then like the Smallpox, Bloodghast discard shell of the Pox decks.
Only the two Bloodghasts. Seems like a weird number for Bloodghast.
Yeah, I don't question greatness. So
You're just happy Seth's on your team. Let him do his thing. You're fine with whatever he decides.
yeah, we'll just let Seth roll with it and hope the chips fall our way.
All right. Well, it's time to see which way the chips are going to fall. Our players are ready. Let's head down to match number 1.
I want you to lift me up so high, a place that no one's ever been. Take me to oblivion. Here we go. Seth Manfield said, boys, I got this sweet Smallpox deck. It's going to be awesome. And here he is. Gabriel Nassif, meanwhile, been having a lot of fun playing a Hollow One ever since the Pro Tour. Kicking off our match, game 1, match 1. What do you think of these hands, Brian?
I mean, Seth's hand is interesting. Like, it doesn't have a lot of action, but Knight's Whisper will draw him into some stuff. And then Nassif's hand basically has like a lot of ways to draw extra cards and resculpt. So right now it doesn't look that scary. Like, he doesn't have like the Hollow One start, but that could quickly change with a Burning Inquiry.
Definitely a lot of variance involved in piloting the Hollow One deck.
Oh yeah, I kind of found the variance is always on your side, but maybe that's not quite true.
Yeah, it feels like you have to be able to handle the swings if you're going to pilot this deck, because you're going to lose your Hollow Ones. You're going to random draw into them sometimes. It's just got a little more swinginess to it than your average Magic deck.
Yeah, for sure. But even like despite the swinginess, it just does some super powerful things, even with some of the weaker hands. So, there's a huge amount of like variance between the best hands and the medium hands. But even the medium hands are like often good enough to beat your opponent's deck.
How about it? What do you think Seth's thinking about with his Thoughtseize? Taking his time.
Yeah, like he kind of has an option, I think, of taking. Like I was thinking the Faithless Looting or the Burning Inquiry.
That's what I was at.
Yeah, like you wanna like he has two big things. You definitely don't want to take the Flamewake Phoenix. So I guess the hope is that I think Seth's hand is bad enough that he's okay with like drawing 3, discarding 3 off of the Inquiry, and it might backfire for Nassif as well.
Fair. Street Wraith cycles into merely a Lightning Bolt. Here's the Burning Inquiry. Gurmag Angler and Tassiger hit the bin for Gale, but he's got second Gurmag Angler. No
Looks like
hollow ones
Seth-
anywhere in sight.
Seth just discarded the fresh 3 cards that he drew, it looks like.
It's basically the same hand he had before.
Yeah. One of the cards that you did discard is Lingering Souls, though, which is nice.
And to see set up for a turn 2 Gurmag Angler, but that's kind of all he's got going.
Now, Seth drew a Thoughtseize, which is interesting. I wonder if he fires that off.
Interesting.
Now.
He saw a Gurmag Angler, but he also saw one get discarded, so I'm pretty sure that's an unknown Gurmag Angler.
Yeah, I don't think Seth knows anything in Nassif's hand except for Flamewake Phoenix. I think everything else is gone. So he might just, I don't know if I guess he's going to flash back to Lingering Souls here, which I like that, just getting some pressure on the board.
Yeah, I felt like the Thoughtseize miss was super awkward with his mana. Like he could do it. He had a couple of 2-mana things that were reasonable to do, so I didn't think he would do the 1-mana thing.
Yeah, I mean, next turn he can Thoughtseize and Night's Whisper if he needs to.
Yeah. See if he keeps cycling Street Wraiths. Still hasn't found a hollow one. Still hasn't found a second land. So he's going to go for the looting here, and he really needs a land. Okay, he got the Wooded Foothills. So he is going to be able to cast Angler.
Yeah, that's a pretty good looting, too. He gets to discard 2 Phoenixes and put an Angler into play. And Seth just has a Fatal Push, so he can't really deal with that Angler.
It's a scary Faithless looting. I mean,
yeah, look.
If he does, he's only got 2 cards, and if he doesn't hit a land, then this Angler stays in his hand.
Yeah, if he misses there, then I think the advantage swings towards Seth. I think him hitting and being able to put an Angler into play, I would say that he's a little bit favored this game, but anything can happen here because Seth could. I mean, if Seth peels like Smallpox or something, that would be like devastating.
That's fair. Yeah, Smallpox is exactly what he needs, isn't it? Just really wants to kill that Angler. It's funny. I don't know. I don't think I could play this Hollowwood deck. I would have just played Gurmag Angler and figured next turn I can loot. If I hit a land, I'll then get one of the Phoenixes back. So if I could have.
Yeah, I think Nassif is like thinking about he's thinking about Liliana or Smallpox and how devastating it would be if he plays Angler into those cards.
Okay.
Because next turn he can play Angler and get back a Phoenix immediately, and then he has a little bit of insulation. So I think that's where his thought process is. But now Seth has the opportunity to Thoughtseize away the Angler. So
interesting. That makes the Faithless looting make a lot more sense if he wasn't even excited about playing Angler that turn.
Yeah,
and I think it's because he's thinking about cards that would make him sacrifice a creature.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense from his perspective, but it really worked out in Seth's favor there because Angler would have been a huge problem for Seth, like the way things are looking.
Is there any chance Seth declines this Thoughtseize?
I think the only way that would happen is if Seth somehow like casts Night's Whisper and then wants to cast something else instead. But I think most likely we're going to see him just cast Thoughtseize and Night's Whisper and then pass the turn after that. I think it would be like pretty bold to not want to cast a Thoughtseize after your opponent just cast Faithless Looting and has been missing land drops. Yeah.
Well, so it's only turn 3. Gabe didn't miss a land drop.
Oh no, you're right, he didn't.
But he declined to pick a play was the reason you might think his hand is medium. So anyway, Thoughtseize hits the Gurmag Angler. Nassif played around the wrong card, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's 4 Smallpoxes and the Lilianas versus only 3 Thoughtseizes left. So
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think Nassif's play made a lot of sense, but it just really didn't work out for him.
Maybe Burning Inquiry can save him.
It's definitely a start. I think without access to a big creature though, like I think he needs to hit a hollow one or another Angler off this Inquiry, because those little creatures are just going to run into like Lingering Souls tokens.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wonder if
Two
he's thinking about
anglers.
brutality. Yeah.
2 anglers and a Tassigr are already in the yard. Ugh, conflict with Street Wraith. Did he cycle off that? Flameblade Adept.
Yeah, Seth has a Fatal Push and Lingering Souls for next turn, so Seth's actually in really good shape here, which we thought that this matchup was almost unwinnable for Pox game 1, so really fortunate the way things shook out this game so far. I mean, it's not over yet, but I would say that Seth does seem favored.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Nassif's he's down to 3 permanents, 1 card in hand. I mean, his graveyard has a little bit. It's got, what, 1 Bloodghast and a couple of Flamewake Phoenixes? So even his graveyard's not that. So I guess there's some, flashback on Faithless Looting. Nassif's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, if he draws something like Gurmag Angler next turn, he could be right back in the game. But I think he really needs something like that to pull him back in.
Agreed.
Seth has some interesting choices here too. Like he can cast Bloodghast and Fatal Push, which is I think what he's going to do. He's going to use the second flagstones to. I guess he can't do it with both flagstones. So yeah, he has to shock himself with the shrine to be able to do that. But he does get to attack with the Ghast, which is nice.
Hasty Bloodghast. Coming over. No waiting.
I love how both players' life totals are so low, and they've basically both done almost nothing, like attacking-wise.
Yeah, Nassif down to 7. Sorin.
Yeah, I think Seth's best play here is still Lingering Souls and Flash It Back. And then use Sorin next turn to punch in for lethal, but he might go for it here just to gain some life, just to be safe.
So if Nassif takes the other fork, if he plays the Gurmag Angler, then his next turn is 2 Flamewake Phoenixes. Does he win this game?
Yeah, I think it's really hard for Seth to beat that. I guess Seth did draw a Anguished Unmaking at some point for the Angler, but even just the 2 Phoenixes by themselves, like kind of put a lot of pressure on the Lingering Souls.
Yep.
So I think Seth would have probably lost if that had happened.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Now I'm not sure that Nassif even has an out, honestly.
I don't think he does.
I mean, maybe there's something I'm not thinking of, but
I mean, I can think of black and red cards that could get him out of this, but not that show up in the Hollow One deck. There's no sleeper.
No cards in hand, opponent at 9 life. Seems pretty tough, but especially with that Sorin to finish the job next turn in case something like post board Nassif has explosives, which could get him out of the situation. But
fair.
I think he's debating what to do with his bolt. I mean, I think I'm not sure that. I mean, I think you just go upstairs with it and hope that there's an out we haven't even considered, but maybe. No. I guess he could. Let's see. Goblin Lore maybe could do something if he. I think he would have to not cast the bolts, and then he could like Goblin Lore into Hollow One. I don't know if that would even do it.
Bloodstained Mire is not getting it done.
No, that's not gonna be enough.
Wow, so Seth Manfield in the Smallpox deck. Gonna take game 1.
Nice. We definitely needed that because Seth has 4 ley lines on his sideboard. So if he can, stick a ley line for one of the post board games, then I won't even say that that's guaranteed. I definitely beat Seth a couple times when he had ley line in play, but it certainly goes a long way.
Yeah, there's the 4 Leyline of the Void that came in, the Celestial Purge, and a Disenchant as well. Does Nassif's side get to sideboard much? What were you sideboarding from his seat in testing?
So I was bringing in the explosives, and I was bringing in. I was actually bringing in Molten Rain as well, which
Interesting.
Yeah, it seems a little odd, but it actually played out pretty well in the post-board games. Just blowing up a Shambling Vent, sometimes also killing a Planeswalker. And also, if they start on Leyline of the Void, it's sometimes they keep a hand that has Leyline of the Void, and the rest of the hand's pretty bad. And Molten Rain into just like hard casting Street Wraiths can go all the way. So, but maybe I was playing too much for the scenario where they start with Leyline by bringing that in.
Nassif has Ancient Grudges. What are the Ancient Grudges for?
Oh, I bet he's
expecting Bridge?
Yeah, I think he's expecting Bridge.
Huh.
That's an interesting choice. I don't think that Seth...
Why is Seth not bringing in Ensnaring Bridge now that I look at it? Isn't that one of the reasons why Lantern crushes Hollow One? Hollow One just can't beat a Bridge?
Yeah, I think the difference is that like Seth has a really hard time getting Hellbent for Bridge fast enough.
Okay.
Just too many expensive cards like Lingering Souls and Storins and things. Like with the Lantern deck, you can be Hellbent with Bridge, really early in the game, as early as turn 2 even. But it's not really true with this deck. And if he has like 3 cards in his hand, Steve can still attack with Phoenix's Bloodghast, Flameblade Adepts.
Seth also has Magus of the Moat in his sideboard, but is not bringing that in either. I guess the Phoenixes beat that.
Yeah, and also Lightning Bolt.
Well, yeah, I saw Nassif siding out his Lightning Bolts, is why I was starting to ask.
Yeah, I think if I was Seth, I would have brought those in. I'm not sure what his reasoning is for not. Looks like he might be
He's debating.
Yeah,
It's weird because they've both got Seth has these crazy powerful threats like Ensnaring Bridge and Magus of the Moat that Nassif kind of has to answer. And I think the way it landed, Seth left all of that in his sideboard, and Nassif has got Ancient Grudges in his deck that do basically nothing.
Yeah, I mean the advantage for Nassif's deck is that he just has so many ways to discard them. Like if they're bad, he just doesn't have to. Like he can Faithless Looting them away or Goblin Lore. Yeah. I think Seth has to.
If he winds up against an Ensnaring Bridge, then he'd be certainly kicking himself.
Okay, that's a way better hand for Seth.
Turn 1 Leyline of the Void. Turn 0 Leyline of the Void.
Leyline of the Void and 5 Irrelevance. Yeah, I'm not sold on Seth keeping Liliana in the deck, but I think the reason for that is I think he's just planning to mulligan to Leyline, and Liliana is actually a reasonable card with a Leyline in play. At least that's my guess to why Liliana would still be in Seth's deck.
Yeah, making the Hollow One deck discard with the plus, not very exciting in game 1, huh?
No, and the Edict effect against a bunch of Bloodghast and Flamewake Phoenix is also not super exciting. But it is fine if they get exiled.
Flameblade Adept is the turn 1 play Gabe decides on. Seemed like it was the only way he could play this hand.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was a good draw for Seth. I played a few games of Hollow One against Seth on Pox when Seth led on Leyline, and I think that your game plan has to just be trying to hit land drops up to 5 mana and cast Street Wraiths, and sometimes even cast Hollow Ones if you have to, and go from there. I imagine if I were Seth here, I would just take that Bloodghast, and then...
Yeah, I was going to say, Nassif can just, crack a fetch land, summon a turn 2 Bloodghast, and start attacking.
Yeah, that's what... Yeah, I mean, I think I would make that play if I was Nassif next turn, assuming he draws nothing. I would just play the Bloodghast, and that's going to put pressure on Seth's Liliana as well.
Right.
To have 2 creatures in play. Maybe if Nassif...
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Nassif didn't have 2 lures and a Burning Inquiry, maybe you take one of them, but... There's
That's
so much
exactly
redundancy there.
Completely agree. Thinking about it, it's got to be Bloodcast. You can't deprive Gabe of the ability to randomly fix his hand.
Yeah, I mean, he might be thinking about taking the Burning Inquiry just because he doesn't want to get random down to the game. But I don't think his hand is even that great, so it's probably fine if that happens. Plus, he has Lingering Souls in his deck, so anytime getting yourself to draw extra cards and discard is nice with Souls. Looks like, okay, he went with the Goblin Lore, actually.
Does Flameblade Adept change this? Let's see if it could go Adept and Inquiry instead of Bloodcast.
I think that might be better, actually. I would like maybe think about playing the land and the Adept before casting the Inquiry.
Oh, for sure.
Just to get that threat into play, and then you also get to attack for 4 with your Adept this turn, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Seth's hand gets decimated and he doesn't get to play Magic.
Looks like Nassif's going a different route.
Yeah,
he can basically do that next turn, right? He can play Bloodghast this turn, and then next turn he can go Adept plus a discard card.
That's very true. Although I almost wonder if just playing the second, he might just play the second Adept and then say go, which I think I like that even more. Play the Adept, play the land, and then next turn you get to make a huge attack for at least 8 if you do that. Or even he can even play the Goblin Lore next turn if he leads with the Adept here.
He's lucky enough. He can Goblin Lore into Burning Inquiry.
Yeah, I mean that's what discarding
7
6
triggers.
Yeah, that's 14 damage.
6,
I mean,
yeah.
Seth probably would lose if that's how it plays out. Okay, he went with the Ghast.
Yeah, and Urberg, of course, lets Wooded Foothills tap for black. No turn 2 play for Seth. Just has to decide which land.
Yeah. Basically,
but you guys think Leyline all by itself might be good enough, huh?
I don't think that Leyline is entirely good enough, but I think it's like basically Seth's only chance to win. So, like, Seth is going to need to draw. I think Lingering Souls is going to be a really important one, or one of his Sorens, I think, to be able to pull out of this one. The way it's looking, like I think Nassif can just beat him down with these creatures.
Continues to save the discard cards. I guess this is Flameblade Adept go?
I think so.
Eventually he's going to deal real damage with those creatures, right?
Yeah, I think he's just setting up for a big turn.
And now Seth has to choose between Thoughtseize and Liliana. Where Liliana is basically just a 3-mana Edict.
I kind of think it's still you play Liliana, you edict him, and then next turn you can play the other Liliana and play a Thoughtseize as well.
That makes sense to me.
You just have to get creatures off the board as much as you can. And then at some point draw Lingering Souls.
Yeah, here is Liliana the Veil. Down goes Bloodghast? Is this obvious?
Yeah, I think it's
Bloodghast.
It's definitely the Ghast. Oof, that's a big draw.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, maybe a big draw.
6 triggers, a bunch of random shuffling and discarding, and I still see a hollow one in Gabe's hand.
Yeah, I see the hollow one. He lost the Burning Inquiry, but he got the hollow one.
Yeah.
I'm not
sure. Not lose the Answer Grudge. That's what he. Well, he may not even know that's what he wants to lose, but it is.
Yeah, so he gets to decide if he wants to kill Liliana. I really think he just goes all at
8
Seth.
at your face. Yeah, I mean.
You don't want to throw away
half his
4
life
damage.
total. He agrees. Yeah, all 8 go to Seth. Liliana on 1 counter is not that exciting.
Yeah, especially with another hollow one. With a hollow one here now, like anything that pumps Flame Blade Adept like threatens lethal next turn, or just like something. I think he sided out his bolts, but they would have done the trick too.
Now Gabe debating whether to hold both of those lands in hand against Liliana discards.
Yeah, I think he doesn't want to get rid of the Ancient Grudge because he's worried about Bridge.
Totally.
But yeah, if he knew that Seth didn't bring in Bridge, then he would just play a land and very easily pitch that Grudge. I think I like playing the land in case Seth has something like Smallpox. You want to be able to have a 3rd land next turn in case you draw like a Phoenix or something. But Seth drew Bitter Blossom. I think Bitter Blossom might be a little bit too dangerous here.
Yeah, 8 points of life left.
8 points, well, basically 2.
All right, how do you sequence this? Tick up the one Liliana, play the other one?
I think so, yeah. I think you tick up, discard the Thoughtseize.
Or the Bitter Blossom.
Yeah, it's probably... Okay, I guess he's going to go for the Bitter Blossom.
I mean, if you're not going to play it now, you're never playing it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a world in where you start gaining some life with Sorin or something and eventually play it. But I guess the same is true with Thoughtseize, so...
Yep, keep the new Liliana. Presumably this one goes down.
Yeah. I'm assuming he sacks Flame Blade, and then...
I would think so, yeah. He can have 1 Adept, finish off Liliana. Hollow one can take half of Seth's life total. Or he can top deck a random discard card and kill him.
Nope. Blackleaf Cliffs won't get the job done.
So Seth has 1 draw step.
Seth has to peel Sorin, Liliana, or Sorin or Lingering Souls, I think. I don't know if he...
Yeah, it's got to be a way to neutralize Hollow One.
I don't think there's anything else that does it. I wonder if... I bet he kills the Lily here, actually, because there's no reason not to.
Oh, I would think 1 power Adept is going to kill Lily. Yeah.
Yeah.
8 divides nicely into 4+4 anyway.
Especially siding Bolt out, like there's no like for any discard spell he draws other than Faithless Looting is +3 for the Adept, and Hollow One already deals 4.
Fatal Push does not kill Hollow One.
It does not. I think that's game. Seth might Thoughtseize here just to get a look.
Oh, he's going to see the Ancient Grudge. That's actually very relevant.
It is relevant, yeah. I think Seth now knows that if he was thinking about bringing in Bridge, he probably shouldn't.
Yeah. All right, looks like we're going to game 3.
Yep, even Leyline wasn't enough.
But game 1, no problem. Just never let them have a large creature. It'll be fine. As long as you can fade the Hollow Ones, the Gurmag Angler to the Tasigur.
Oh, he did keep Bolt in.
I think he kept 1 or 2 in.
It looked like he had boarded them all out at one point. I must have missed where he brought them back.
Yeah, I don't think he brought many back. Seif wins.
Just backwards world. Seth wins game 1, loses the Leyline game. I really think he should bring those Maguses in, but like it forces Nassif to have a bolt or he can't attack.
It's true. Oh, Nassif did go with 2 Molten Rains.
Oh, he did. Okay, I like it. Yeah, it looks like Nassif boarded pretty identically to how I was boarding, with the exception of bringing in Grudges, which I didn't have. I didn't bring those in. But I also maybe had the luxury of not thinking that Seth would bring in the Ensnaring Bridges.
Right. I think I would have to bring a Grudge in. against a deck with bridges in the board. Like, you don't put bridges in your sideboard if you don't think you can get down, right? What are they even doing in the sideboard if he's not bringing them in here?
I think they're for like other creature decks, humans, Bogles, things like that. I don't know. I just think
decks with smaller creatures than Hollow One.
Yeah, decks with smaller creatures, but maybe a slower clock is the thought.
Sure.
Yeah, it looks like Seth brought in Damnation, which he didn't have before, which I like.
Well,
I like
sense.
having that. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to have Damnation.
Yeah, otherwise he's just going to die to random 5 CMC creature.
Yep.
It is backwards world, like you said. Seth managed to win game 1, but then lost the game where he started with Leyline of the Void in play.
Yeah, I almost think it's conceivable that Bitter Blossom should come out as well. Maybe I'm misguided in thinking that, but it's just so much damage, and basically any turn other than turn 2, it's not super impressive.
Yeah, these guys lining this up, trying to figure out if they want to tweak anything. Deceit's still on 2 grudges. He keeps changing his mind on how many lightning bolts he wants. He's up to 3 now.
Looks like Seth's still tinkering a little bit too.
It's a big game. I mean, we've seen in previous weeks on the Super League that the first match really tends to set the stage for a lot of what happens, right? Which team has to start reacting first, right?
Yeah. Usually it's kind of a chain reaction for a while, and then it seems like most weeks it kind of settled into like some grindier decks that just kind of hope to win a couple matches in a row.
Right. You play your answer, then they play their answer to that, then they play their answer to that, and then at the end you wind up with back in the world of 50-50 decks again.
All right. Well, if this hand isn't good enough, then I don't know what is.
Two Leylines.
Double Leyline and turn 2 Bitter Blossom, and then eventually Sorin.
That sure sounds good enough.
Sounds pretty good to me, but we'll see. Hollow One never loses, so.
This hand is a Bloodghast, a Tasigur, a Flameblade Adept with no fuel. I mean, I guess Street Wraith counts technically.
I mean, Nassif's hand's actually pretty good against Leyline of the Void. Other than like not casting the he does have 3 lands to eventually start hard casting some of the threats, and he has 1-drop and 2-drop. So
sure, against Leyline, you like lands and giant creatures, I guess.
I like Seth only playing 1 Leyline to serve to leave himself some discard fodder for Burning Inquiry. It's good play.
There's the Hollow One. This is just Adept Go, I would think.
Yeah, I think it's like Adept into Bitter Blossom, and then maybe on turn 3 you like cycle Street Wraith, cast Hollow One, something like that.
Keeping the bonus Leyline is also Liliana fodder, right? Not just.
Exactly. Yeah, that's another good point too. Just having an extra card in hand is just worthwhile when if you're not bringing in Bridge. If Seth had brought in Bridge, then I think he would have.
Fair. All right. Nassif elects for Blood Crypt untapped, leaving his deck thick with lands against that Leyline.
Yeah, you also want a Black Source in play for sure, so that you can cast Bloodghast next turn.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so I think Seth just lands, basically. Disenchant. That's not a bad draw, actually.
Kills a Hollow One.
Yeah. I mean, Bitter Blossom eventually takes care of Flameblade, Adept, and Bloodghast. It's going to take some time. You might take some damage in the meantime, but just having an answer to a 4/4 is quite nice.
Faithless Looting is the draw. Does Seth's Bitter Blossom change the way Nassif needs to sequence his hand?
It certainly makes the Bloodghast way worse. So if
Yeah.
I think Nassif here is probably leaning towards casting the Looting than casting the Hollow One, just to get a threat big enough to attack through Bitter Blossom.
Yeah, you can also cycle a Street Wraith here too. Get 3 triggers on the Adept. Make the Hollow One actually free.
Yeah, I think I would lean towards keeping the Street Wraith because he can maybe hard cast it on 5. It's actually pretty good against Seth's deck. Swamp Walk and doesn't die to Fatal Push. But I guess he's going to go for the cycle. And another Wraith. So that Disenchant's going to end up being really good for Seth.
Yeah, good point. All right, Nassif not interested in hard casting Street Wraiths. Cycles that one as well. Comes up with land number 4.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to find as many hollow ones as he can possibly get.
Land in a Goblin Lore. I think maybe the Bloodghast is a discard here now that there's an enemy Bitter Blossom.
I think the Tazagor's a stone, like just a slam dunk discard, and then
I mean, he's got access to 5 lands already. He can get there. I mean, if you want him to save Street Wraith, Tazagor isn't that much worse. It's only 1 more expensive.
Yeah, I think Tazagor's just body's way worse at getting chumps, but yeah, I think I would
value the Swamp Walk that highly.
Yeah, I think the Swamp Walk's like pretty key. Like when Seth has something like a Bitter Blossom in play, he can indefinitely chump the Tazagor. But this is going to be basically a race to Seth drawing 2 lands before he dies.
Gabe kept Bloodghast. Fairy Rogue number 1 appears. There's an Inquisition. That's not bad here. Although I guess he's got to spend his mana on the Disenchant, huh?
I think it's more important to kill the Hollow One now and just try. You don't want to have to chump it here because then you can't double block the Adept next turn.
That makes sense.
I think Seth's looking to preserve his life total as much as he possibly can because Soren's going to buffer that. So,
is Nassif tempted by this Goblin Lore? Attack with a pair of largish creatures into 1 Fairy Rogue?
Yeah, I think it's tempting. He might want to wait a turn on it, not knowing about the Disenchant, or thinking that
the Adept does have Menace, right? So it's not like Seth's blocking it, even if it's large.
Right. He might think that Seth's going to chump block the Hollow One this turn, and that he can still get in with the Adept next turn because of the Menace. But I'm not sure exactly what his thought process is.
I like the Goblin Lore. While Menace makes your Adept unblockable.
Yeah, I think it's better than just putting a 2/1 out that dies to Bitter Blossom. So.
Oh, his hand.
Oh, wow.
Hello. Hollow one.
Wow, that's probably lights out, honestly.
It is bad news for Team Genesis, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Also, this Bloodghast is going to be hasty next turn as well.
Oh, good point. Yeah, so there's the Disenchant on the 1 Hollow One, but Goblin Lore was 3 discards. Here is a pair of free Hollow Ones. The Line of the Void doesn't stop these guys from being cheap.
Nope. No, it does not. I think Seth's. I'm trying to think of what he can even. I don't even know if he has an out, honestly.
Right. I mean, he needs his outs are 4 mana things, and he doesn't have the lands.
Yeah, he doesn't have like the land or the damnation, so I'm not sure if he even has a way to win. To be honest.
Huh.
It's really interesting. I thought Seth was certainly favored this game with Leyline into Bitter Blossom.
Oh, yeah. Well, you saw it when you said his opening hand. If he can't win with this, what are we even doing?
Exactly.
To be fair, though, we saw the variants, right? Nassif Goblin Lord his way into a pair of Hollow Ones. Didn't have to discard either of them.
Yeah, I mean, even before the 2 hollow ones there, though, is still like reasonably close as to whether Seth would get to Soren before he died to Bitter Blossom.
I mean, I guess. Nassif had to find something, right? I mean, the Adept is going to die to a double block, and then...
Yeah, the Adept would eventually die to a double block, and then the Bitter Blossom would just be a ticking time bomb on Seth's life total.
I think we'd have been... I mean, it would be this board, but just without the 2 hollow ones.
That's also a big draw, too.
Yeah, good point.
I think that's... If it wasn't already game over, that would certainly make it game over. Yeah, like Seth just has to chump 2 hollow ones. I don't think he has any other blocks, really. And then next turn, if he draws a land, he plays a Soren. Makes it 2-2.
Does that buy him a turn?
It doesn't even really buy him a turn because he's still forced to chump both hollow ones.
Well, he needs to buy a turn to then top deck Damnation.
Yep, that is true. But then he still dies to the Bitter Blossom.
Fair enough. We'll deal with that problem after we top deck exactly land followed by exactly Damnation.
Yeah, then we'll find a way out of that. Oh, another Bitter Blossom.
Not getting it done. Wow. Gabriel Nassif. Now, you did tell us at the beginning of the match you didn't love Seth's chances.
No, I think that was the worst possible matchup for Pox was against the Hollow One deck, just because Game 1 felt almost unwinnable, and then Game 2 was heavily reliant on Leyline. But even in the testing that Seth and I did, I was still winning like 50% of the time when he did have Leyline. So
yeah, we saw Nassif. There was a turn 1 Leyline, both of those sideboarded games, but those were the 2 that Game 1.
Yeah, and I mean, Seth's hands were not great, but they were playable. And right. I mean, Nassif still just played creatures and played hollow ones and punched through.
So now you guys are down 1-0, but you also know exactly what you're up against. Gabe Nassif is going to keep playing that deck until you guys knock him off.
Yeah.
So what's the plan?
So I think the plan is that I'm going to be playing either the Grixis deck or the Lantern deck. I don't know if we have a clear definition yet of which one it's going to be, but probably I feel like I'm going to be slotted up to play next either way.
Fair enough. Well, I'll go let you talk to your boys and decide exactly how you guys want to play that. Stay tuned out there, everybody. We will be right back with round number 2. Don't go anywhere.
Need the latest Magic the Gathering singles for Constructed? Casual cards for the kitchen table? Or sealed product for a draft night with your friends? CoolStuffInc.com has what you're looking for. With an extensive selection of singles, sealed, and supplies, free shipping on orders of $100 or more, a 25% buy list bonus, and our ever-popular customer rewards program, CoolStuffInc.com is a one-stop shop for all your Magic the Gathering needs.
Rivals of Ixalan is available in stores. Stake your claim. The Golden City of Araska has been found. Build your forces with new vampires, merfolk, pirates, and dinosaurs, and gain the city's blessing. Visit rivalsofixalan.com to find out more.
Check out Rivals of Ixalan Booster Draft Leagues on Magic Online. Draft anytime, play anytime. Available now. For more information, visit mtgo.com.
Hello and welcome back. It's time for round 2 of the Team Modern Super League this week. I'm Randy Bueller, joined now by Logan Nettles. How's it going?
It's going great. I'm still got some jitters from that last match. That was really cool for our team. Super lucky, you know.
You had to enjoy the 2 hollow ones in Game 3.
Yeah, I mean, we were, after we lost Game 1, I was talking to Reed, and we're like, okay, so do you even have the Eldrazi deck built? Because we're like, how are we gonna win? And I'm like, do you need cards? So yeah, we didn't really have a plan, and we're like, after we lost Game 1, we're like, man, the ley lines, and then yeah, that was just such a unexpected turn of events. After Game 3, when the opening hands for Game 3 were like, okay, as Leyline Bitter Blossom, he's on the play, like, how can we possibly win? So we're all strategizing, and it was awesome. But yeah, I'm really happy with Gabe. I think he sideboarded very well. Like, he cut some of the anglers for Game 3 and kind of made his deck a lot better if Seth did have the Leyline. And Flameblade Adept was just like crucial there. Just
sure,
just attacking for 5 every turn, and but yeah, that was great. I mean, I'm so happy we got one under our belt. We didn't really have a good plan moving forward. So
did you? Now, what did you guys think when you saw the smallpox list? Right, the deck list came out yesterday. That can't be what you were expecting them to submit.
It's pretty funny. I was actually on the fence of playing it myself.
What?
Yeah, like I played it a lot last summer, and it was close. It was kind of 50-50 for me. But yeah, I was really surprised to see them. And yesterday, me and Reed were like, you want to test a matchup or two, because we found out the decks. And it was like, yeah, let's play Teamer against Smallpox, I guess. And he's like, we're like, okay, who's going to build Smallpox? And he's like, well, I'll get the Sorens because it has the added bonus of finding out what they do. So, but yeah, it's like their gauntlet was really unexpected. It's like they basically have 3 rogue decks, with the Grixis midrange. Yeah, Grixis midrange, the Abzan Little Kid, and the Smallpox deck. Like, I've never played against those decks in leagues. I know they're kind of their own little creations. So, yeah, I was worried for sure because they really kind of built strong midrange decks, and I'm much more used to playing against the more typical modern lists, like Burn or the big mana decks, so much less comfortable against what they have. So I'm really glad Gabe started out well for us.
All right, well, the Seath got the first one. Let's go find out if he can get a second win with that Hollow One deck. Here we go. Time for match number 2. All right, here we go. It is BBD on Lantern. That is Team Genesis's answer to Gabriel Nassif and the Hollow One deck. I think those sideboarded artifact destruction spells may come in a little more handy in this match than they did in the last one, huh?
Yeah, thank goodness for 4 Ancient Grudge. It's interesting, Lantern, it won the last Pro Tour, but I've been playing a ton of Modern to prepare for the mocks and kind of just still have the itch to play after the mocks, and I haven't seen Lantern at all. I don't know what really happened, but it seems to just have fallen out of the online metagame. So I really am not sure who's favored here, but we'll see how it plays out, I guess.
It's gotta be BBD, right? Like, Nassif has literal 0 answer to a Game 1 Ensnaring Bridge. Like, burn him out, that's it.
Yeah, maybe Nassif can have a really explosive draw, and BBD will, sometimes it can take time for the Lantern player to find that bridge. So, and it's nice. At least he has a lot of ways to manipulate his library. And obviously the milling can be pretty helpful for Gabe's deck.
That's fair. Yeah, it's all about the bridge.
Right. It's kind of like bridge he wins, no bridge he doesn't kind of thing. So
I'll buy that. I mean, we saw this matchup in the top 8 of the last Pro Tour, and you mentioned it. Lantern won the Pro Tour. Most of my experience with this particular matchup is the quarterfinal match where it was ugly.
Did Lantern actually beat Hollow One in the top 8?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's how the matchup played out. That's why I instantly felt like, oh, this is lopsided. I've seen this before.
Gotcha. Yeah. After Reed lost his quarterfinal match, I just stormed out of the room.
Fair enough.
All right. So kind of what I was saying, BBD doesn't have the bridge. So, Gabe's just got to be as quick as he can and try to get pressure going before he finds it, basically.
Yeah, we'll try to get those library cards moved into a more sensible spot. It's always weird how it puts BBD's library on the bottom of the screen and Nassif's library on the top.
Right.
What are your thoughts here if you're Brian?
I guess just Goblin lore. I mean, obviously not the creatures, and then the other spells are just very mediocre burn spells at this point. So Goblin lore definitely seems like the way Nassif gets the ball rolling. But yeah, BBD's got the Ancient Stirrings on top, so that's bad news for my team because he's already going to be ripping through that library to get that bridge.
And Nassif's draw isn't particularly fast, especially once he gets deprived of this Goblin lore here.
Yeah, I guess something we overlooked a little bit is BBD with the pretty crucial being on the play to be able to Inquisition that turn 1 discard spell.
Yeah, good point.
And then Thoughtseize the turn 2 discard spell. So
also, Brian mulliganed a not awful hand. Like, Brian's 7-card hand had an Ensnaring Bridge in it, which we've talked about being the key to this matchup, but I think it only had like an Opal and 1 land. So it was it wasn't going to really interact very well in the first couple of turns.
Yeah, I saw double Mox Opal in there, so essentially a mulligan already. But he did it pretty quickly. So I guess Gabe's
time to summon a Bloodghast?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking discard it with Brutality, but I guess you just summon it, as unconventional as that is. Yeah, so looks good for BBD, but if the Stirrings misses and he just gets kind of unlucky.
He's got basically 4 turns, maybe 3 turns to find a bridge.
He's got the Shredder to help him, so definitely feels like he's in good shape. There's also kind of like if maybe Gabe can just chip away and try to have bolts that
only found Codex Shredder with that Ancient Stirring, so
okay.
Of course, he's got the Lantern and the ability to manipulate the top of his library, so still plenty of digging, but Brian has to find a bridge in about 3 turns.
Yeah, and we might see the Hardcast Phoenix following.
That's what I'm expecting.
Following up the Hardcast Bloodghast.
You do what you got to do.
Lightning Bolt's an interesting one. BBD is going to let him have it.
Damage, isn't it? He does let him have it. This has to be Crack Mesa, Summon Flame Wake, attack from 15 down to 11. With 5 points of burn in Gabe's hand, sort of at virtual 6.
Yeah, seems like BBD is really valuing the ability to Shredder himself. Definitely recognizes the importance of the bridge. I actually didn't know, but I've been told that BBD's a kind of a long-time Lantern player, or not, maybe not long time, but an expert. So
he has invested a lot of time in being one of the guys who's good at this deck. He finished top 16 at the Pro Tour. It's actually Brian's best Pro Tour finish ever was top 16 with Lantern at the most recent Pro Tour.
Wow.
Yeah, here's the Phoenix. Here's 4 damage. Can BBD find the ensnaring? Not that one. Not that one. Nope.
Don't think he wants the other Lantern either.
Upkeep Shred. Upkeep Shred. Bobble's not going to get it done.
He could keep the Bobble, though. Yeah. Just kind of on the all-in, like, find it next turn kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's functionally a cantrip.
Right. Certainly thinking about that. I do like that Gabe has, well, being on his team, I like that he has the looting in the graveyard, so BBD can't really mess with the top of his deck so much.
Well, Brian cycled the Bobble and wound up with an Inquisition for his trouble. That does hit a Lightning Bolt, so not irrelevant.
Yeah, not the worst thing ever.
Actually changes the clock, the current clock anyway, by a turn.
Yeah, BBD definitely running kind of poorly here. Like, he put 4 cards on the bottom with Ancient Stirrings. Yep. He's got Whir of Invention that he can also find, so it's like 8 cards. And they're just not showing up yet. He's still got at least one more chance, though.
All right, here's Faithless Looting. Let's see, finds a Goblin Lord, another Faithless Looting. No burn, no creatures.
I guess you just keep Goblin Lore and Brutality. I kind of want the Brutality just as a...
Oh, yeah, I think Brutality is the best card in his hand, in my mind.
Yeah.
You think Lore's better than Looting?
Well, you can always flash back the Looting. I'm not sure though. I've played 0 games with Hollow One, so I'm not sure how important Lore is. I mean,
I think I'd keep the Looting. It's fewer cards but more control.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where Nassif landed. So this is an attack for 4. This will knock Brian to 7. Brutality can knock him to 5. So Brian feels like he needs a bridge now.
I feel like he needs it now.
Mathematically, he could get away with next turn, maybe, but then he's under so much pressure versus direct damage.
Also, having to use the Shredder shuts off Whir this turn, so it's got to be bridge. Theoretically, he's alive right now.
Theoretically, yes. He just has to suddenly mill every bolt and every brutality.
But yeah, I mean, if Gabe wins this game, I really like his chances because of 4 Grudge. It's just, obviously milling Grudge doesn't get the job done.
Yeah, I know BBD doesn't feel like Grudge is game over. I mean, he's got the ability to extract them, right?
True. Also, Pixis exiles them.
All right, here's 4 damage.
So I think you.
Yeah,
I feel like I would fetch away the swamp first, but I guess
Interesting.
he needs the land. He needs to discard the mire.
Does he though? I mean, if you put a good card on top, the problem is that Brian could just mill it. So, kind of like his top card doesn't count.
That's fair. But it also takes away the ability to get rid of that Dark Slick Shores
Fair.
sooner.
Yeah, distracting Brian.
It's kind of why I like keeping the Goblin lore. Like, I don't know. I have no clue if it was right, but just the card quantity is important here. And, you know, when you sign up for Hollow-In, you sign up for those situations, you know, just crossing the fingers and...
Yeah, I think it's time to fire off this Collective Brutality. That seems like the right use of his mana here. That's going to drop Brian to 5. The attack is going to drop Brian to 1. Can he find an Ensnaring Bridge right now, or are we going off to game 2?
Yep, has to find it now.
And then even if he does, like we keep saying, Nassif can potentially top deck a Point of Burn.
If he does, then he'll need to find
Academy Ruins is not going to get it done.
It's got to be now, and now he's got to use the Lantern.
Well, that is neither a Whir nor a Bridge. So
man, wow.
Wow, I feel like you guys got away with one.
We really did. That was very unlucky for BBD. He saw at least half of the deck, I believe, if you count the Stirrings.
Yeah, well, you totally count the Stirrings.
Mm-hmm.
He's just 4 copies of Whir of Invention, 4 copies of Ensnaring Bridge. He's got the full 8 and just couldn't find one.
Yeah.
And now, like you say, 4 Ancient Grudges come in from the sideboard. Now, Brian has Grafdigger's Cage, right? Does he also has... Does he have Surgicals or no? I thought he had Surgical Extraction. But I don't see them. I guess
he does have one in there. It's above the Padim.
Okay.
For some reason it's in that slot.
Oh, sure. Those are the sideboard cards that came in. So 1 copy of Surgical Extraction and some Grafdigger's Cage. Just the 1 cage, I think, or maybe it's 2.
Yeah, he's got so many 1-drops you can't see the bottom.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else does he have going on?
Do you bring in Molten Rain if you're Gabe? Ruins, slow him down.
Probably, like, if you have things you want to cut, that's a fine option, but it's definitely not exciting. Yeah, I mean, there's Academy Ruins and Inventor's Fair, like some relevant lands. Sometimes you can kind of mana screw them from not being able to cast Bridge or Whir for enough, but definitely a plan B.
Looks like 1 has made the deck so far.
So Gabe is cutting all of the bolts and all of the brutalities.
Makes sense.
Yep. Also has engineered explosives, which is definitely good as well in this matchup.
Sure. He's debating brutality versus Grudge or versus Molten Rain.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I would go with. Maybe like one of the cheaper options on the draw, because you're less likely to do anything really significant when you're on the draw with a 3 mana, you know, that Stone Rain kind of effect. All right, let's see here. Ancient Grudge for Gabe, and BBD's hand looks fine.
Yep. But just fine. I don't know. Lantern Shredder, 2 mana,
couple of stirrings. He's probably pretty happy with that. Time to play face-up Magic some more. Thoughtseize is the top card of Brian's library. Collective Brutality is the one Collective Brutality that stayed in the deck for Nassif.
Okay, I got confused again there. Gotcha.
No, those libraries are backwards. It's the other way around. There we go.
Yeah, I kind of wish that Brutality was a Molten Rain instead, but it's all right.
I mean, you might get an Ancient Stirrings with it in the discard mode, right?
I think he's more likely to like just try to get, just get the pressure going. Yeah, certainly play Adept here. Oh, I guess he's thinking if he wants to fetch away the Bloodghast. So I think I would just keep it. You've got the Inquiry in hand. Seems right to just play Black Cleave Cliffs, draw the Bloodghast. But it's smart to think about it. He's thinking about what he's going to do next turn, knowing what he's going to draw here.
Comes to the same conclusion you did. Black Cleave Cliffs, leaving Bloodghast on top. BBD cycles a Bauble. Draws also Thoughtseize.
Yeah, also knew he was going to get... Wow. BBD didn't shred away the Opal, which is interesting. I don't know why he would not.
Maybe not have had a stop set on his own upkeep after he drew his Bauble card?
Maybe. That doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, maybe you really value manipulating Gab's library, but
maybe.
I think he wanted to shred away that Opal. It's just anything is better, you know? Right. And Gab had to think about Thoughtseize.
Ancient Grudge is the selection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now Brian needs a cage, is what Brian needs.
Oh, I understand. I guess Gab could mana screw BBD by grudging the Opal.
Yeah. It's a good point. Ravaging Siege is the find on that Ancient Stirrings for Brian Brown doing.
Definitely serves me right for questioning BBD's Lantern prowess.
He does get this Lotus Petal effect as well if he wants it, right? +1 mana on this turn. Should he, for example, come up with a 1 mana artifact that he really wants to cast before Nassif can untap. So no flashing back Ancient Grudge. Not until he draws another one and points at a cage anyway. No picking up Bloodghasts either. So now there's that temptation to summon one again, huh?
Yeah, like knowing what's in BBD's hand, I want a Brutality, but
Nassif does not know that. That is not a card that has come after Lantern hit the board. That Ancient Stirrings was in BBD's opener.
Right, so I think it's very unlikely he does that. I'm not really sure what you do want to do here. I mean...
No, I mean, Brutality's not insane. Summoning Bloodghast is not insane. Getting a second Adept on the table to set up for a big Burning Inquiry next turn is not insane.
I do think I like that the most. It's interesting because against Smallpox, this same thing came up. Gab had an Adept and had a choice between a Bloodghast or a second Adept, and he chose Bloodghast that time, and this time he went with the other line. And me and Reed were both like, please play the second Adept, and he played the Bloodghast, and we're like, okay. But I like that he did it this time. It sets up for a more explosive attack. Bloodghast is not a very powerful card, you know, just Just a two power attacker when Cage is in play. So I don't think you mind just binning that with Inquiry. You'd rather have the potential to attack for a ton with these adepts.
I like it. This is a big Ancient Stirrings, though. What's Brian going to find? Inventor's Fair.
Yep. He's nowhere close to activating that. So
how much is it to activate?
It's 4 plus tapping, so 2 more lands.
Yeah.
But it will be gaining him a life a turn, and the land's going to be useful for when he finds a bridge.
Yeah, Welding Jar is the other card Brian added to his board this last turn, so
that's definitely
it even
relevant.
Harder to Ancient Grudge. Like the next Ancient Grudge that Gab draws only gets the Welding Jar, and then goes to the graveyard to hang out and watch.
Right. So we're kind of back in the same situation we were in game 1. It's kind of a find the bridge or don't scenario.
Yeah, that's a good point. Only one Codex Shredder this time.
I do like Gab does have a lot of pressure. He could end this game in 2 attacks potentially if he draws the right cards. But we'll see what happens.
Black Fate Bliss, not the top card he wanted to see after shuffling. But what are you going to do?
He could also he could also escalate the brutality for additional pumps on the adepts here.
That's funny. Sure. Double adept makes brutality do a little more than maybe we were thinking about.
So it could be like you lose 2 life. He could deal 12 points of damage or points of life here. The downside is that his Inquiry, he's going to reduce his hand size significantly if he does that. So
yeah, that's the question here, right? Does he Inquiry first? I think you Inquiry first.
Mm-hmm.
Like his pause was very much, can I just brutality with a bunch of escalate?
And he did bin the brutality.
Came up with a Phoenix, Street Wraith, and a Bloodghast. Nothing.
Well, he can cycle the Street Wraith. It's
right.
More pumps, and then
summon a Bloodghast. He hasn't played his land yet.
Yeah. Not exciting, but why not?
I mean, he's going to knock Brian down to 6 with this attack. 2 power creature starts to sound reasonable when your opponent's at 6.
He could also consider waiting on the Street Wraith cycle until there's like a good card on top of his library to like kind of play the little Codex Shredder dance.
Sure.
It's probably going to be the same either way. Like the adepts are still going to get pumped next turn if he does it next turn.
Yeah, the only difference is if Brian finds a lantern an ensnaring bridge exactly now.
So yeah, the math is interesting here because Brian's going to gain 1 life and then Phoenix, hardcast Phoenix. I feel like Gabe is just short of lethal next turn, but
I've got him putting Brian on 1.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Inventor's Fair, life gain, gonna matter. And in terms of direct damage in Nassif's deck, is it now it's all gone? He sided out all the bolts and he left in 1 brutality as card number 60, which is now hard.
That's right.
All right, Nassif debating whether to cycle the Street Wraith here.
I like holding it. Also, Bloodghast has haste now, but that's basically irrelevant because it's his only play. Oh, and
there's the bridge. Wow.
I think that's basically it.
Nassif has to draw 2 Ancient Grudges, is how I read this. through
Yes.
Codex Shredder Lantern. Yeah, what else?
Yeah, if it weren't for the welding jar, there would be some hope, but I don't see the hope anymore.
And Nassif did keep the Street Rave, so he does have the ability to try to steal a card off the top in response to a Shredder activation. Oh, second bridge.
Yeah, that's got to be it. I think quietly that Grafdigger's Cage was just huge.
Yeah. I didn't think it was all that quiet. I think that may be the most important card.
Well, it kind of like slipped through when he drew it, and I mean for me watching the game, but
Sure.
But yeah, just interesting because I kind of felt like it was going to be lopsided post board with all these grudges, but you know the cage is obviously a huge deal.
Yeah, we've had Brian in the booth a couple of times talking about how people don't always understand what's good against Lantern. You know, people think, oh, I've just got a whole bunch of ancient grudges, and they aren't as good as you think they are. They aren't as good as it seems like they would be, because in particular of Grafdigger's Cage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, of course, they are among the better cards in Gabe's deck for the matchup, but they're not the deal breakers that you'd think. Yeah, I don't know what Nassif can do. Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense not to scoop. You've got engineered explosives as an answer. Interesting.
Well, if he shredders, and he can.
There's only the one shredder, so.
Well, the thing is, also Gabe can't ever explosives for 3, so. Well, I guess he can actually. He's got
he's gotta have a great source for flashing back grudge, right?
Right. I forgot about that. I mean, maybe he can get rid of the jar. We'll see what happens here.
Yeah, you have to cycle Street Wraith as a response.
Oh, it's pithing needled. I missed that. So he can't even cycle it. Yeah, that was last turn. Pithing needle.
Cycling is an activated ability, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Hilarious. Yep, missed that. Very nice needle from BBD. He does know what he's doing with this Lantern deck in his hands. That's a pretty tight technical play.
Yeah, agreed. And yeah, it's funny. Last match we saw Seth lose with the hate cards, and now we're watching Gabe lose with the hate cards. So you never know. You never know what with Modern. These matchups are crazy.
There's an ancient grudge, and Shredder's just like, nope, I don't care that you have 2 Street Wraiths in your hand. You're not drawing that, and you're not casting it from the graveyard either. Brian's got him coming and going.
Yeah, Gabe's just a matter of time for the scoop to come in here. Hopefully he spares us some. Specifically against a player like BBD, he's just not gonna leave any room for a mistake, and he's kind of got all bases covered here twice over. So
does he have the ability to cast a?
I would definitely scoop to this extraction here, so he doesn't see my deck.
Sure.
Doesn't see your sideboard plan.
That's fair. Brian is in fact casting the surgical.
I think Gabe should concede here.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I think he's thinking about all the various card drawing he has, the lootings, even the random draw discard cards. Those are draws that aren't governed by the Codex Shredder.
That is true, but just he can't flash him back. BBD's got the jar. He's got 2 bridges.
Yeah.
There we go.
Fair enough. On
Scoop.
to game 3.
Maybe Gab's going for a little mind game. Now he's going to totally switch up his sideboard plan,
Oh, let him see what you're up to with the surgical, and then
Right.
Certainly, you don't snap submit.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind the Molten Rains here. Like I said, I think they're a little stronger on the play, and Gabe's doing just that.
That makes sense.
Cutting an Angler, that's interesting. Yes, sideboarding with the Hollow One deck is tough because all of your cards are pretty important to your Goldfish draws. So, in matchup like against Jund, for example, where you want all these big game hunters and fatal pushes, I see people just kind of randomly trim cards here and there. It's like, oh, I guess I'll cut a couple Phoenixes and a couple of these, So it's tough to sideboard much with a deck that's so synergistic.
True. The second game, obviously, Nassif was way behind for most of the clock time that we spent watching it, but it was close. BBD was down to like 1 or 2 turns where he had to find a bridge. And we saw in the first game that they don't always find it.
Yeah, it was like game 1, BBD ran extremely poorly, and game 2, he found it pretty quickly, so...
Yeah, I found it and the cage first.
BBD's hand looks great. Gabe's hand looks great too.
So he can loot plus Wraith into a turn 1 Hollow One, or he can open with an Adept. Probably you open Adept there?
Yeah, I think you open Adept because it still hits for 4 with that line on the second turn.
Yeah.
Could get lucky though and just draw more Hollow Ones on turn 1. Yeah, so this matchup is definitely like a turbo race of just Gabe's just rushing to kill him, Brian's just rushing to the bridge, and being on the play is just massive.
We'll try to get the overall match score added to the overlay. It is Team Pomplamoose 1, Team Genesis 0 at this point. So Nassif, Logan, and Reed are up a match. BBD doing his best to even things up right now. All right, Nassif cycles the Street Wraith into Blood Crypt. Looks like he prefers at least 1 Hollow One as his turn 1 play, hoping for the second one.
Yep. Proving me wrong. I've been really impressed by Flameblade Adept.
It's good. It's not going to deal. Oh, there's the second Hollow One.
Wow.
I was going to say, you said, the Adept does 4 anyway, but I'm like, if you're going to deal 4 anyway, then cash in the variance. Your worst case scenario is you still hit for 4 on turn 2, but your best case scenario is you find another Hollow One.
That's true, but if, say he missed, the Adept has more potential on like turn 3, turn 4,
You can still play it on turn 2. It's just which one is turn 1, which one is turn 2. I think Nassif's line is just better.
Yeah.
Easy to
Good
say
point.
now we see the second Hollow One, but I'm not sure what the advantage is of the opening with the Adept. You don't give yourself the ability to get lucky, and I'm not sure you get paid off for surrendering that chance.
I think
this card is the question here.
Me and Gabe are just, well, he went for the play, but I kind of always make the play under the assumptions that you won't get lucky,
I tend to play that way as well. It's
Yeah.
just I don't think it's the right way to play a Hollow One deck.
Totally agree.
Here we go. Turn 1. I got 8 power. Your go. Can Brian find Ensnaring Bridge and set up quick enough? It's going to be tough. He does have the Mox Opal. He has the Shredder. He has the Lantern. Oh, he can't activate Mox Opal yet. Wasn't able to get a third artifact down.
Yeah, this is
And
just.
oh, by the way, Nassif has an Ancient Grudge. Crunch. Here's 8. And now he can either grudge, say, the Opal, or he can play a pair of Adepts, where any discard spell would become lethal. Don't know what the right answer is. He goes for Adepts.
Yeah, this is just an incredibly potent draw from Gab. I mean, obviously, turn 1 double Hollow One is
Oh,
exactly
there's
what you
the
want.
Cage. So that Ancient Grudge only gets to kill one thing. BBD sees second Lantern on top. That's not what he wants. Oh, he sees Nassif has the Faithless Looting. Now the Adepts are lethal. Nassif has a turn 3 kill. 8
Yep.
plus 8 plus that Faithless Looting is 2 discards to trigger the Adepts. We're done.
Well, he can mill it and play Cage. Oh, he's going for Stirrings.
He can mill the Faithless Looting, sure, and then fall to 2.
But it's kind of just delaying the inevitable, I think.
Stirrings found Dark Slick Shores. Yeah, I mean, if Brian had time, he could Inquisition the Grudge. He could Cage so the Grudge stays in the yard. He can Whir to go get the bridge, but I don't think he's got time. Mills
Yeah.
the Looting. Now any land is lethal. Okay, Tasigur on top is not going to kill Brian. And he is going to play the Cage, so Looting's not coming back from the yard. Grudge is not coming back from the yard.
So actually, if he, let's see here, can he? I feel like he might be able to get there.
Well, Brian didn't have the mana for the Inquisition, so this Ancient Grudge is still turned on.
But next turn, he Inquisitions and whirs for a bridge.
I think Nassif can Grudge Cage as a response. And now BBD has to keep him off green mana for the entire game.
That might be true, but it's better than dying, right?
Oh, you're right. No, I thought we were done, but
Yeah.
the fact that BBD was able to mill the Looting into kind of a blank. Tasigur, like,
And there's a
lands with
Flameblade Adept on top too, which is
functional blank.
yeah, just nothing.
So Nassif has Brian at 2, but can Brian stitch all of this together? Does Ancient Grudge do anything yet? If Brian has a Whir, he's got Glimmer Void, and he still has the 3 artifacts. So even blowing up Opal doesn't help, does it? Because Brian's holding the Glimmer Void. Oh no, he sticks Brian with a card in his hand. Can Brian empty his hand?
Yeah, exactly. He needs to get rid of that Thoughtseize. He needs like a 0 mana artifact. I think. I mean, the way I see it, he's got a mill Thoughtseize, draw 0 mana artifact, and then
Yep.
Inquisition, land, whir for bridge. He'll have 0 cards. Because if he's stuck with 1 card, he's going to die to the Adept still.
Yep. 2 1-power Flameblade Adepts can attack for the last 2 damage. Meanwhile, Nassif can grudge something proactively. Like, Nassif is the one who's thinking right now, and he thought about, do I grudge Mox Opal? Is that a thing? And he's decided no. Ships the turn back to Brian.
Yeah,
Brian
it doesn't.
get his Codex Shredder untapped. So now it's BBD's upkeep, and I think he has to shred Thoughtseize.
He has to shred it.
It's not going to get all those cards out of his hand otherwise. He clearly can't cast it, being on 2 life and all. I think he has to shred Thoughtseize and get lucky.
Yeah, and Gab's feeling great. Like he's like, okay, but it's really close here.
Yeah.
He has to save the grudge for a bridge here, and
Yep.
And he doesn't know about the Inquisition, so.
No, he doesn't know about the Glimmer Void either, which is relevant to all the math.
Okay,
Wow,
that.
he drew the Thoughtseize?
Yeah, so that's.
How does that? Oh, he can Inquisition his own Thoughtseize. Hilarious. He can
But he still
targeting
gets
himself.
he still gets grudge though, doesn't he?
He does get grudged. I'm just like, I still got to tip my cap to a clever play. Brian figured out how he could actually get his hand down to 0 and get Ensnaring Bridge into play. It's not going to work because Nassif has exactly the right card in his hand, but Brian found a line that damn near pulled this game out.
Wow. I mean, for some reason, I thought Brian knew about the grudge, but But yeah, that makes
Brian
complete
came up with
sense.
a play that it wins against everything except Ancient Grudge, and there's the Ancient Grudge. So.
Wow, that was so close.
Jeez. Yes, that was incredibly close. Brian found a great line, but Gabe had exactly the answer he needed. Ancient Grudge on Ensnaring Bridge, attacks for the win. You guys are 2-0.
Yeah, wow. I'm kind of like blown away by Brian's expertise there. Like, I'm just confused. I'm like, did he not have a stop on his draw step? And it's just like, no, of course he did. He's playing Lantern. He knows exactly what he's doing, you know. Played it like a true master, I feel. And game 3, Gab just had all the, perfect draw.
Nassif's draw was absurd. Nassif's draw was double Hollow One on turn 1, plus a turn 3 kill that Brian had to Codex shred him out of, to then almost stitch together the turn 3 lock. Wow, that was a great game of Magic.
Yeah, and it came down, pretty much came down to Xaxes with those 1-power adepts too. That was just wild.
Yeah. All right. Well, Pamplemousse is up 2-0, and Gab Nassif is on a roll. He has won both of those games, and the way this format works, he's just going to keep playing. Genesis knows what they're up against. They've got to keep throwing decks up against it. And the other rule that actually kind of kicks in at this point is you're not allowed to repeat a player until everybody has had a chance to play. So we saw Seth play the Smallpox deck. We saw Brian play the Pox deck. That means it will be Brad Nelson playing this next match, even if the deck they might want to throw up against Hollow One isn't necessarily one of Brad's specialties. It will be Brad. Question is, which deck will he be playing? Meanwhile, easy night for you so far. You just get to sit back and watch.
Yeah,
this is. You have to play.
This is just fantastic. I mean, everyone that's played in a team event knows how great it feels to be carried, and it's feeling great. Just free wins, undefeated. It's the easiest way to win.
All right. Well, kick back, relax, watch another match, see if your teammate can get a third W on the board. Stay tuned, guys. We will be right back after these messages with more Team Modern Super League.
Need the latest Magic the Gathering singles for Constructed, casual cards for the kitchen table, or sealed product for a draft night with your friends? CoolStuffInc.com has what you're looking for. With an extensive selection of singles, sealed, and supplies, free shipping on orders of $100 or more, a 25% buy list bonus, and our ever-popular customer rewards program, CoolStuffInc.com is a one-stop shop for all your Magic the Gathering needs.
Rivals of Ixalan is available in stores. Stake your claim. The Golden City of Araska has been found. Build your forces with new vampires, merfolk, pirates, and dinosaurs, and gain the city's blessing. Visit rivalsofixalan.com to find out more.
Check out Rivals of Ixalan Booster Draft Leagues on Magic Online. Draft anytime, play anytime. Available now. For more information, visit mtgo.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Team Modern Super League week number 2. I'm Reed Duke here with Seth Manfield. Seth, how's it going?
Hey, it's pretty good. Other than Genesis being down 2-0, Hollow One kind of doing a number on us here, but
Yeah, man. It's been a crazy evening so far. I guess as Hollow One usually leads to that sort of dynamic, but you played first against Gabe. You had sort of like a topsy-turvy match where we thought, you were a big underdog in game 1, but then the 2 sideboarded games looked good for you. It wound up playing out the opposite of that. How was that match from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Game 1, we were supposed to lose game 1 and then I didn't think it was a good matchup. We thought you guys were likely to lead on Hollow One, and we knew it was kind of a bad matchup, but we thought you might play something else, and we wanted to play the Pox deck. And yeah, I mean, the Leyline of the Voids after sideboard were kind of the plan, but you also still need, other things. And yeah, I mean, Hollow One does its thing. It's one of the top decks in the format. So
yeah, to be honest with you, you guys came with a really strong lineup against us for this week, and we felt that Hollow One was like our best deck against your team. So we played it first, and we're just like, all right, this really has to do some heavy lifting. And so far, it's done exactly what we wanted it to do, and potential to keep going. We're going to see Gabe against your teammate Brad Nelson this round.
Yeah, it's been tough we knew Hollow One was one of your best decks, and there's a couple of different strategies to that, whether you want to either wait and hold your best decks and kind of play your 50-50 style decks like your Jund deck early and then kind of hold your trump card for later, or if you're just going to be like, you know what, I want to get off to a quick start and just start winning. And considering that worked out, I think it's working out for you guys, obviously, here.
Yeah, I mean, Hollow One is a tricky one because it's so like explosive that even if you do run into a bad matchup, you could just get like that insane draw that we saw Nassif have in the most recent game, 2 Hollow Ones on the first turn on the play. So there's like, with certain decks, like if you're playing Boggles or Storm or something, you're worried about the other team having the exact deck that like always beats you. But with Hollow One, I feel like you at least have a chance to, to fight through. And yeah, we're just hoping to get a little bit of traction with in the early matches and then take it from there.
Yeah.
So
basically, I like Hollow One, and I think you guys were correct. I don't know if 4 Ancient Grudge is what all of the versions are playing now, but I think that you guys your decks were prepared for a couple of things. Like we thought you guys might expect things like Tron and Lantern, just because we played them at the last Super Series League, and BBD has been playing a lot of Lantern. Pretty much every Modern event he's played Lantern, and then I've been playing Tron. So we kind of expected that. That was why I didn't play Tron. And then BBD knew playing Lantern that he was going to run into more grudges and things like that, which is unfortunate. But that's kind of the nature of these tournaments, where if there's a couple of things you expect, then you probably just want to prepare for those things, and then the rest of the metagame as a whole. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah. In fact, you guys definitely one-upped me on the Tron thing, which I'll talk about in a moment. But it sounds like the players are ready, so let's not waste any time and get straight down to the match.
All right.
Welcome back to the Team Modern Super League. You're watching match number 3 of the evening between Gabriel Nassif with Hollow One and Brad Nelson, who it looks like has brought Jund.
Yeah, well, this is the nature of being down in a hole. Brad wanted to play Jund. I don't think this was the matchup he was looking to play it. And so I found this matchup to be slightly in Hollow One's favor, but I found it to be still winnable from the Jund side.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, so looks like Brad mulliganed. And then this the Dark Confidant, well, the creatures look poorly positioned against the bolts, but Nassif doesn't have any way to churn through his hand or get an early Hollow One, so I guess we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah, it looks like Nassif kept a fairly unexciting hand, and I think part of that may have been the logic of, well, I don't want to mulligan to something specific if Brad's just going to Thoughtseize me on the first turn anyway. So, focusing more on the card quantity aspect than looking for something in particular with his opening hand.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When you're up against a discard spell deck, I hate mulliganing and just having like 1 or 2 spells in my hand.
So here, Dark Confidant's going to eat a Lightning Bolt. Actually, in that sense, Nassif's hand matching up somewhat well. He also has both the Bloodghast and the Flamewake Phoenix to combat the Edict effect of Liliana of the Veil, but we'll see if he's able to navigate that correctly, because if he does just run at the Angler at the wrong time, he might get caught.
Yeah, and it looks like Nassif's previous draw step was the Goblin Lore, so now he actually does have a way to dump possibly that Bloodghast or the Flamewake Phoenix, and then have some Gurmag Angler fodder, but you never know what's going to end up hitting the graveyard.
He drew into a Hollow One, but discarded it right away. He also binned a Bloodghast, which is pretty good, and is left with, I guess, a decent hand. He's going to have to cast those Phoenixes for retail value, but the Angler, the Bloodghast should pair pretty well together.
Yeah, I think that was fine for Nassif. I mean, he's got a nice next turn set up. He would like to have a Phoenix, I guess, in the graveyard, but Brad, unfortunately, does not have a Thoughtseize would be a lot better than a Inquisition here, just because it could nab the Gurmag, which is kind of the card that's holding this hand together. If Nassif is able to get the Bloodghast into play, he can then have protection against the Edict of the Liliana that Brad would want to set up to get rid of that Gurmag Angler.
Yep. But Brad has to match it up correctly with an end of turn decay and an untap Liliana, because you won't have access to enough mana to do them both in the same turn.
Yeah, so that would be a reason not to play the Tarmogoyf, although the Tarmogoyf is a 5/6. It's a pretty significant. Now,
something I'd like to mention for anyone who's not super familiar with this matchup is the games actually play out quite differently before and after sideboarding. And in this game 1 here, before Nassif gets to bring in his sideboard cards, I think Tarmogoyf is the absolute best card that Brad has access to. Just, a creature that's, thanks to Nassif filling his own graveyard, usually just giant brick walls, everything on Nassif's side of the battlefield. And in a matchup that is not necessarily so good, you just have this really quick, hard-hitting threat that can steal you games. After sideboard, Nassif gets to bring in stuff like Big Game Hunter. Sometimes he has Fatal Push, sometimes Liliana of the Veil, but he's a little more prepared for it after sideboard. But in game 1, it's quite hard to get through this Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, I've actually been play testing Jund this week, and I realized going, because I was talking to Brad about sideboarding for the deck, and I realized Logan mentioned bringing in Big Game Hunters against Jund, and I was thinking about them more for Eldrazi as like a good card there, but it makes sense to have them against Jund. But I'm not sure if players are widely bringing that card in against Jund, because it's only really hits the Tarmogoyf, but it makes a lot of sense because that card is the main way of pressuring the Hollow One deck.
Yeah, I know that my teammates they sort of like have this thing for Big Game Hunter, like Nassif and Brock Parker and Ben Rubin. They all just love the card. They play like 4 in the sideboard, which I think is a little bit overkill. It seems like a tool you want access to, but you can become exploitable, like people keeping their Scavenging Ooze at 3/3, stuff like that. But I will say that when the card works, it's pretty impressive.
So it looks like Brad wanted to be proactive. I like that, just getting the Goyf into play and start. Maybe if he's able to say draw another Tarmogoyf or something like that, he can just have a lot of pressure going. So I would assume the turn, now that Nassif has picked up a Collective Brutality, I assume he would want to discard at least one of those Flamewake Phoenixes. He's probably going to want to escalate that, and then also play the Gurmag Angler.
So you're thinking maybe just drain for 2 life and look at Brad's hand?
Yeah, I think so.
Would you try to discard 2 Phoenixes and just really cross your fingers that the Angler is going to survive? I guess if you're clearing the way through any kind of Maelstrom Pulse, like maybe it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I probably wouldn't, just because you can cast one and bring one back on the following turn. And then if Brad say rips like a Terminate or a Pulse for the Gurmag Angler, you might have put all your eggs in one basket that way.
No, you make a good point. Playing the 4th land untapped just makes it pretty clean, risk-free decision there.
Yeah,
looks like Gabe agrees with you. Oh man, I'm not sure if you saw the end of the last match, but I had just a nightmare flash through my head. What ended up happening was Brian had to Inquisition himself to get his hand empty for Ensnaring Bridge, but I was afraid just with the Magic Online template that when he cast the Inquisition, Gabe would assume it was targeting him and respond with Ancient Grudge. But,
that would have been great.
Nassif, he told me he's so nervous playing this that he's being so careful not to misclick and stuff like that, and I really appreciated it there that he was made sure to double check everything that was happening, but could have been a disaster.
It's weird. I also feel way more nervous playing in this thing than I do in just a normal, online match. It's my first Super League, so my first match, I think playing, I made a misclick last week where I sacrificed the wrong I sacrificed the wrong pile to a Liliana, and then I actually somehow got lucky and it ended up working out for me. But I totally know where he's coming from on that, and that was a great match from both sides. I thought when watching BBD play it, I was thinking he was going to do something else, and then he found a line that he was only really dead to that one unknown card, which happened to be the Ancient Grudge.
Yeah, I mean, from Nassif having one of the best draws that any deck is capable of having in Modern, on the play, this super fast turn 3 kill, Brian actually found a play that was able to beat the board, which in itself is super impressive, but Nassif just had to have the exact perfect hand, exact perfect last card, and he did.
So it looks like Brad actually did draw a Terminate for that turn. So that was the answer to the Gurmag, and now he's actually ahead in this race.
Yeah, and because the Flamewake Phoenix has to attack each turn of Fable, Nassif's in a pretty bad spot here. He can play the Street Wraith as a blocker, but he's going to have to go to 3 to do it, and then Treetop Village is going to finish the job.
Yeah,
so instead he has to cycle. Ooh, man. Timely Terminate.
Do you like cycling there, or would you rather have played the Street Wraith and hope to draw a Bloodghast or a Phoenix? I guess he drew a land anyways, so...
Well, the Flamewake Phoenix has to attack each turn of Fable, so he's going to have only the Street Wraith as a blocker, and he would have to shock himself with the Blood Crypt to cast it. So he'd be at 3 and dead to the treetop, unfortunately.
Sure. Good point.
But, we've had 1 or 2 moments where where the tops of our libraries were good to us, so I guess you guys get to have a turn as well.
Yeah. That Terminate ended up, we kind of talked through it a little bit, but that Terminate was huge for Brad, just being able to, that Gurmag was kind of, the Nassif's draw wasn't the greatest, as you were saying, and it ended up being pretty critical. It looks like Nassif is going for those 4 big game hunters. So I wonder what Brad is actually going to...
Yeah, I'm eager to see what Brad does because, being on the Jund side of this, there's a lot of different ways you could sideboard. A lot of people that I talk to have different approaches to the matchup, but I've always felt a little bit uncertain how to sideboard against Hollow One. Looks like Brad is doing largely what I do with taking out the Liliana of the Veil. Curious to see what he does with stuff like Damnation, Liliana, Kitchen Finks. I actually think Kitchen Finks is quite good in the matchup.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see Kitchen Finks being good. I think that he and I kind of are thinking along the same lines for the sideboarding. I'm not sure if... I guess I haven't thought enough about the big game hunter. Like obviously Goyf is great game 1. If you know that your opponent is bringing in 4 copies of big game hunter, I don't know if that means you're actually at that point cutting Tarmogoyfs. I'm not really sure enough to know the answer to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure either. I bet that if Nassif knew Brad was keeping in all 4 Dark Confidants, he would want at least a couple Lightning Bolts. Dark Confidant's one of those cards, like, I don't know if you want 0, I don't know if you want 4, I don't know if you want something in the middle, but it can be a double-edged sword in a matchup like this.
Do you like Liliana the Last Hope as like a...
I often had like 1 in my deck. It's not a great card, but especially if your opponent is doing something like what Gabe is doing, bringing in the reactive cards, it's something that, you know, you can have in your deck to ensure that you're going to win a long game, even though it's not very good in your opening hand. You can also neutralize a Flamewake Phoenix, which is sort of as good as actually exiling it.
That makes sense. I think Brad's going to be looking for... He brought in two Nihil Spellbombs and a Grafdigger's Cage for the graveyard stuff. It looks like Nassif is going to mulligan here, though.
Oh yeah, look at this. On the play with no lands, but 2 Street Wraiths and a Hollow One. So you might be thinking like, okay, if I can draw into a land or another Street Wraith, maybe. But Nassif, he tends to be a more disciplined mulliganer than me. So I think he probably won't keep this, but we'll see.
Are you in the camp of keeping more hands then, rather than...
Usually, yeah. I'm an optimist, so I like to look at the bright side and, you know, plan for things going well and stuff like that. Oh man, he kept the hand.
Wow.
Look at this.
Okay.
And he found a land, so he's gonna be okay here. He can either just cast the Hollow One for 1 mana, or maybe play the Adept, but
wow.
Probably just cast the Hollow One, I think, especially against a deck with Lightning Bolt and Fatal Push as its 1 mana removal.
Yeah, this is interesting because I think you do play the Hollow One because you don't want a Goblin Lore next turn and potentially lose it. So
I agree.
think even though if you knew you weren't going to discard it next turn, then you would keep it. But since you don't know that, I think you want to just get it in there.
Okay, and Brad finds Nihil Spellbomb, which you mentioned one of his best cards after sideboard, but just so happens it's not lining up that great against what Nassif's opening hand is. Which, that's a big thing about the Hollow One deck, is it can play out in a pretty wide range of ways, so it's hard to have a card that's always great.
Yeah, it turns out turn 1 Hollow One is pretty, who would have thought. And that was a risky keep, but maybe looking at it more, I mean, Nassif has played this deck. I'm sure he's played it a decent amount, so probably. I mean, you have to get lucky with the deck, and so
maybe we can get Athena to replace the overall match scores with just the running counter of how many turn 1 Hollow Ones we've had.
Yeah, that'd be good. So interesting that Brad chose to play the Treetop Village that turn. I guess he's forced to now set up a Maelstrom Pulse, but that might be pretty slow.
Yeah, it seems that his priority is definitely getting the Hollow One off the table, protecting himself. I mean, if you play the Dark Confidants, like you're not going to block, then you're going to take between 5 and 9 damage, and then untap at 8 with a Dark Confidant. It's a pretty tough spot.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he can actually afford to take just a whole turn off, though. Maybe if he bolted the Adept, he would be live to maybe draw something like a Blackleaf Cliffs or some untapped land to be able to.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
So yeah, he could have gotten a Blood Crypt, I guess, which would cost him a little bit of life, but bolting the Adept would probably make it up to him, and then just hope to draw a third land.
Yeah, although the treetop is a little bit awkward. Obviously, he would have rather just played that on turn 1. That would have saved him this whole issue, but he just drew it for the turn. But in either scenario, I'm not really sure how Brad gets out of this. It looks like this is going to be 8 damage coming through, 4 from the Adept and 4 from the Hollow One, because there's still a Flamewake, an Adept trigger on the stack here.
Mm-hmm.
So even if Brad untaps and bolts, then Nassif still has more gas in hand. So I just don't see him. Sorry, untaps and pulses. I would presume he's gonna get rid of the Hollow One.
So there we saw Brad. He cracked his Nile Spellbomb for no value in response to, I guess it was the Madness trigger of Big Game Hunter, but he did that in order to play around a Delve creature like Tasigur or Gurmag Angler, which turns out Nassif doesn't have, but pretty smart play by Brad, especially because it's going to be so long before he has a free black mana to cash in the card draw of the Spellbomb that I think I like his decision there. Now he's again forced to a pretty tough spot where he can either get a Swamp and be unable to cast a lot of the cards in his hand, or get a Blood Crypt and go down to 4 against the Flamewake Adept, Flameblade Adept.
Yeah, and we see what Nassif has here. He actually has lethal on the next turn, but Brad, it's like what you were saying. Like with playing the Hollow One, you kind of have to do some guesswork what they're holding. Like if Nassif's got a couple of Gurmag Anglers in his hand, then all of a sudden Brad's play looks, wow, he actually found the insane line of exiling the graveyard. But that is not how this game is going to play out. Do you think the sideboarding changes then once you switch play and draw?
A little bit. I mean, it might just be the case that like your 60 best cards are your 60 best cards, and it's not worth it to change anything. But I do think the value of a card like, Thoughtseize is a great example. The value of Thoughtseize changes whether or not, based on whether or not you can snatch that turn 1 Faithless Looting or Burning Inquiry. Similarly, Dark Confidant is like when you're on the play and you get out, ahead smoothly, you're going to find a nice window to play the Confidant. But if you're on the draw and you're battling back from behind, you might not find a spot, kind of like we saw in that game. But Brad had the 4 Confidants in. On the draw, so I don't expect him to change that.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, like part of the sideboarding advice, I'm gonna take. If it's wrong, I have to take some of the blame for it, because I should have. I was talking to Brad about sideboarding, and he did kind of what I was recommending, because I've been testing for Phoenix, because I'm going to that and Brad isn't going, so I've been kind of playing more modern lately. But John is just kind of one of those decks where Brad's logged way more games with it than I have, because he's kind of always gravitated towards this style deck. But when you look at it on the flip side, Hollow One is actually a new deck. So unless he's playing a lot of this matchup recently, it still kind of might not be, a matchup that he's super familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think his sideboarding is reasonable. Among a lot of really close choices, The one thing that I know that I would do different is I'd have the Kitchen Finks. I think it's one of those matchups where like sometimes you just need a tiny bit of extra breathing room to stabilize. Like a turn where you can neutralize the life loss of a Phoenix and then chump block a big guy. Like sometimes it just buys you enough time. But certainly not a card that's going to win on its own. It's just a role player type of effect.
All right. Well, I'm really hoping that Brad can. Oh wow. Okay. See, 3 Dark Confidants. That's a lot of Dark Confidants.
Yeah, we may have temporarily lost Nassif's camera. We didn't get to see him sideboard, but we'll keep you updated on that. In the meantime, Brad has a hand that, ooh man, I feel like you would certainly mulligan on the draw, but on the play, what do you think about this, Seth? Would you take a chance?
Wow. You're asking me. I also tend to keep more hands. This is one where I'm certainly keeping it. I'm certainly keeping it if I'm in a league online. Am I gonna keep it?
Okay,
here?
now what if there's 10,000 people watching? Then what do you
do?
do?
Exactly. Once I get there, then it's like, I don't want to lose to my own Dark Confidants. I'm sure that's what he's thinking about. It's a close hand. Like,
it is a close hand. I
don't
agree.
think if he mulligans, it's wrong. I don't think if he keeps, it's wrong. So I'm interested to see where he lies. I think Brad tends to be more into the camp of mulliganing a little bit more than I do. I would guess he's gonna mulligan, even though he hasn't mulliganed yet. But I don't know.
So you brought up a great point in the last hand, which is the guesswork of trying to predict what the Hollow One player is going to do, like how their hand is going to play out. And there are some hands that Brad's draw is going to match up well against. Like if Nassif has a little bit of a slower hand, he's got the big game hunters, then Brad just sticking a turn 2 Dark Confidant at a high life total and having Kolaghan's Command and Maelstrom Pulse to deal with Hollow Ones. It could work out if Nassif has the super explosive hand where he's putting a bunch of Blood Gas and Phoenixes into play quickly. It's going to look embarrassing, but these are the decisions that Brad has to wrestle with while he's deciding whether to keep or mulligan.
Yeah. So I guess we're hopefully Nassif. Obviously, he's in a different. He's in Europe. Is that right?
Yeah, he's in Paris.
He's in Paris right now. So his connection in Paris might not be the same as ours here. So we'll just have to hopefully. I mean, it's still a thing where he's got his clock running. I don't know if timing out is still live here in the Super League, but
yeah.
I guess maybe we'll get the answer to that. Hopefully, obviously we don't want that to happen. Even me, I don't want to win a match like that. So I'm hoping that this isn't a big issue, or I guess one of you. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know I don't know what the protocol is for this situation, but I guess tagging in isn't really a thing that is. I don't know. I don't think that's allowed. But all right. So it looks like his cam is back. Cool. And
okay. So he has a card that I really like in this situation, which is Collective Brutality, able to. I mean, it would just be perfect if Brad's first play is Dark Confidant. Nassif could play the Brutality to kill the Confidant, get a card or two in his graveyard for free, and nab one of those removal spells. But that aside, it's not a stellar hand. So both these players kind of just deciding if they think their hand is going to line up well.
And it looks like the action is on Nassif. So we would just have to assume that means Brad has already kept. Just because it's Nassif's clock running. So
I kind of like it, honestly. I mean, I think it's a really close, tough decision, but I think I would have made the same call as Brad.
What do you think on Nassif's side?
I think I would keep that hand as well for the same reasons we mentioned in game 1, where it's tough to mulligan to something very specific when you might just get turn 1 Thoughtseize.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, the brutality, being able to get those Bloodghast into the graveyard. Brad doesn't have one of his graveyard disruption cards, so that could be a pretty real problem because Brad doesn't actually have the Dark Confidants aren't really a fast clock, especially like you were saying if the first one dies. And those Bloodghast could I mean, you know, but that's thinking knowing both hands. So it could be that Nassif is thinking, well, Brad already kept. I've been winning by turn one hollow ones every match. Maybe I just need to, you know, obviously that there's no possibility of that happen. Well, I shouldn't say there's no possibility of that happening. Obviously there is. He could draw something like a Burning Inquiry or a Looting and then find it, but it's pretty unlikely that that's how this game is going to play out.
Yeah, that's a funny dynamic. In the top 4 of the finals of the Magic Online Championships, Budakov was playing Boggles, and I saw him mulligan a hand. It was like an unexciting hand, but it was a 7-card hand that had a land and a Boggle. And I'm like, man, I would never mulligan that. Like, if you're mulliganing hands like that, it probably means you've been running so hot with the deck for like the last day or two that you're like, oh, I could do better than this, you know? But that is something like your standards change based on how much your deck has been delivering, how much you've been winning, and it's an important or a challenging skill to keep things in perspective in that way.
Yeah, and so it looks like Nassif capped, which I think it was a good decision on his part, especially looking at the hand cams here. So do you like double escalating this brutality?
I think so. I mean, the Bloodghasts aren't doing much in your hand. You would prefer them to be in the graveyard, even at the risk of Brad having something like a Nile Spellbomb. But you know, every point of life matters, and you get the mana efficiency of putting the Bloodghast in the graveyard. So, looks pretty good to me.
So be honest here. If Nassif wins this and just 4-0s us, are you going to be sad that you didn't get to play your Teamer Moon deck?
No, I don't. I'm more than happy to not play, whether it's Nassif on his own or Nassif and Logan. I actually, to be honest with you, I felt kind of bad. I don't know if you watched our first match. It was nearly a month ago now, but I felt kind of like responsible for the loss because we had a really close set. I went 1-1 with Jun to bring it to the siding match, and then I played my pet deck, Soul Sisters, which is like, you know, probably not a deck I would bring if like my only goal was winning, but I just want to like bring something fun and goofy and stuff, and I just got demolished. So like, you know, I sort of felt responsible for our round 1 loss, and now I'm like buckling down, like, you know, this is an elimination match now, so let's not leave anything to chance.
Yeah, and I mean, I've enjoyed preparing for these things. Is pretty hard. Honestly, it's there's been no other tournament like it where you have 6 different decks and you have to kind of juggle what you're gonna not only what you're gonna like what 6 decks you think are gonna match up decently against your opponent, but also what order to play those decks in. It's kind of, so there's a number of different dynamics to play, but it looks like Brad actually found. Okay, so I shouldn't be talking about like this so soon. All right, Brad actually had a good draw here, so he found a spell bomb, so he could potentially Maelstrom Pulse. Well, he has the option of pulsing away the Bloodghast and spell bombing, and then just getting the graveyard of Nassif's, just getting that out of the way.
I think that's a great play because he can afford a little bit of card, or he could afford to spend a few resources because the Dark Confidant's drawing him 2 cards per turn. And with his hand of removal and Dark Confidants, those Bloodghasts are like really annoying, persistent threats. I think that's a great play, the one that you just mentioned.
Yeah, I think it's too greedy to try to wait to draw an additional card from the Spellbomb trigger.
It also matches up well against Tasigur, which happens to be Nassif's big threat in hand.
And actually, it's going to be interesting if Nassif draws, say, a brick, does he just play that explosives? Because Brad has an Ancient Grudge in his hand, which would be which would end up working out for Brad.
So I lost track a little bit, but I think it was the Spellbomb that got revealed to the Confidant, and then the Grudge is an unknown draw step. Do you know if that's the case?
Let's see.
In either case, the Fatal Push does change the equation. I think that's he should probably just push the Confidant. I mean, it's tempting always in these situations. Like maybe you'll let your opponent take more damage, but I think the game is still close enough that and Brad's life total is still high enough that I would just point the Fatal Push.
Yeah, I think he's gonna point the Fatal Push, and then I don't think he would want to play out the explosives just for 2. I'm not sure. We don't know if that Ancient Grudge is a known card or not. But that Dark Confidant for sure is not. And it looks like it for sure isn't a known card because Nassif is going for the explosives, which he wouldn't do if he knew about the Ancient Grudge. And there's only one Ancient Grudge in Brad's list, which from Nassif's perspective might not be coming in the matchup. So
right.
We can understand it.
So Nassif probably a little disappointed there to lose the Grudge, or to lose the explosives, but at least it puts a card in his graveyard. If he draws even a land here, he can play Tasigur. Ooh, that was not a very, very good draw. He would have loved, I mean, an untapped land would have been fine, but something to put cards in the graveyard would have been better.
Yeah. Certainly, like, maybe a 3/4 of its deck would have been a great draw there. Luckily for Brad. Okay, so
the 1/1 body is actually relevant on this board, though. You can trade with the Confidant or suck up a hit from Raging Ravine, and it does look like this game's shaping up to be a close race.
And unfortunately for Brad, that Tarmogoyf looks like it would be a 5/6 on this board, and Nassif does have another big game hunter. I wonder if that could be something Brad is. It looks like he might be actually going for the Raging Ravine, which is pretty smart if he's thinking along the lines of Nassif has 2 cards in hand. What could they be? He ran out a naked big game hunter, so maybe he actually has a second one. So if he's thinking along those lines, now do you like chumping here if you're in the safe spot?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can attack back with the big game hunter. You definitely have some life points to play with. Man, that's a very specific read from Brad. I mean, he hasn't played a card to look at Nassif's hand, but yeah, it's very good against what Nassif has.
And he did it so quickly too. He didn't actually pause for that long. He's just like, you know what? He's got to have big game hunter. I don't see a reason why he would make the play unless he had that read. I mean, it is more mana efficient, quote unquote, to get the Ravine going, but I don't think it's. I think 99% of the players who play Jund are just jamming that Tarmogoyf there.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Nassif thinking about the chump block. Attacking back certainly is relevant, and it's not that bad to go to 16, but it would put a third card in the graveyard to guarantee a Tasigur for next turn. I think all in all, I would probably block just to ensure myself that I have a good play for the following turn, like the Nightmare scenario where you draw Blackcleave Cliffs or something like that.
Yeah, I think I agree with you.
Okay, but he drew Bloodstained Mire, so he's able to play the Tasigur anyway, and it works out pretty nicely that he can now attack with Big Game Hunter, either offering a trade or just chipping in for one extra pretty crucial point of damage.
Yeah, I mean, so Brad's kind of faced with the decision of that Dark Confidant is clocking his own life total. So eventually, if this game stalls out, it's going to become a real liability. But he also doesn't have that much action. So, okay, he's going to block.
Yeah, I agree with that decision.
So I guess if he just draws a land, he might be thinking, Ravine plus a Goyf isn't, it might be enough to win the race if Nassif doesn't have a good play. So turns out that's not the case. And I think I think if Nassif plays out this Bloodstain Mire and plays Tasker, then Brad has to start thinking, I'm behind in the game, and I don't think he can. He probably can't stay with his big game hunter read. He probably just has to hope that Nassif does not have it.
Yeah, he needs something to compete with the Tasigur.
Yeah.
Well, we might be getting to that spot you get to in a lot of games with Jund where you're just like, I hope I draw Bloodbraid Elf into something and maybe draw that 2 turns in a row. Brad is behind in this game, but Jund does have a lot of powerful draws, and something like a Scavenging Ooze, like a card that can stabilize the board and gain some life, would be really huge here.
Yeah, even something like an Inquisition of Kozilek into something to maybe get the big game hunter out of Nassif's hand would be okay. But yeah, Bloodbraid Elf seems like the best draw.
Kolaghan's Command would give him a number of options, including knocking the card out of Nassif's hand, killing the Phoenix, bind back a creature. Okay, well, this looks like a fairly simple turn. Just play 2 Tarmogoyfs and cross your fingers.
Yeah, it's not the worst, but the issue is this Flamewake Phoenix is going to actually be really tough to answer, considering Brad doesn't have much life to play with at this point.
So Brad's going to lose one of the Goyfs, but he can attack for 10 next turn. So if he, I guess he can't attack for 10 unless he draws something. So he'll probably have to take another turn to develop his board. But the point being, the Raging Ravine can attack through Tasigur, and Brad can put together a lot of damage on pretty short notice. So I wouldn't count him out of this game just yet, even though the Phoenix is putting him on a clock here.
Yeah, I think if he draws like a 1-mana spell like a Lightning Bolt, then that Ravine attack becomes a really solid play, because then he can still have something to defend himself on the crackback. But he's running out of time. Something like an Anger of the Gods, I think there is one in the list. That would be a way to exile the Flamewake Phoenix.
So Inquisition not going to do it. Brad is not dead on the board because he can block with Raging Ravine, or he could attack and maybe hope Nassif blocks with the big game hunter, but looks like he's sitting back. Nassif finds Hollow One, which you can either cast or cycle.
Yeah, the rare time when we might actually just see a Hollow One hard cast.
So remember, Brad does have the Grudge in the graveyard, so I think if Nassif was savvy about that, he maybe just cycles pre-combat.
Good point. Yeah, that happened a while ago, and sometimes it's easy to forget that Grudge is in the graveyard. And I made the same thing. I wasn't thinking about the Grudge. Same thing with Nassif. We'll see if Brad is thinking along a different line. So he would love a Bloodbraid into Anger of the Gods here. Let's hope he can do that.
Looks like the Phoenix is going to go all the way.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's unfortunate. It looks like we're going to our Grixis deck. It's going to be BBD playing it. We think that was our best deck. We were kind of holding it for last, but...
Well, Brian said in the pregame show that he thought it was favored against all the decks in our lineup, so it is well within the realm of possibility that he could just make good on that and go 4-0. I mean, just got a 4-0 a league or a daily event, and you guys are on to the next round. But so far, it's been a one-man show. Gabe Nassif 3-0 with the Hollow One deck, still continuing to play. And yeah, as you said, we'll see him against Brian Braun-Duin next round.
All right.
Okay, Seth and I are going to back out, but we will be back for more Modern action next round.
Need the latest Magic the Gathering singles for Constructed, casual cards for the kitchen table, or sealed product for a draft night with your friends? CoolStuffInc.com has what you're looking for. With an extensive selection of singles, sealed, and supplies, free shipping on orders of $100 or more, a 25% buy list bonus, And our ever-popular customer rewards program, CoolStuffInc.com, is a one-stop shop for all your Magic the Gathering needs.
Rivals of Ixalan is available in stores. Stake your claim. The Golden City of Araska has been found. Build your forces with new vampires, merfolk, pirates, and dinosaurs, and gain the city's blessing. Visit rivalsofixalan.com to find out more.
Check out Rivals of Ixalan Booster Draft Leagues on Magic Online. Draft anytime, play anytime. Available now. For more information, visit mtgo.com.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Team Modern Super League. I'm Reed Duke here now with Brad Nelson. Brad, how's it going?
Well, it's not going great. Gabe Nassif is taking his time but beating us relentlessly with this Hollow One deck. And we banned it before, mostly because we don't really know how to attack it, and the decks we bring aren't that good against it. But the Scapeship deck really caused us a problem, as in you brought two decks that beat all our decks, so congratulations.
Well, if anyone's just tuning in, Brad is referencing Gabe Nassif 3-0 with Hollow One, having taken down Jund, Black White Smallpox, and Lantern Control. And now my team, Pomplamoose, is on the verge of victory here if he can win one more. Our team took the calculated gambit of putting what we thought was our best deck first, the Hollow One deck. Mm-hmm. But actually, we've heard from Seth and Brian that you guys took the opposite approach, putting your best deck last, which is the one we're going to see now in the hands of Brian.
Supposedly best deck. We don't really know. BBD's been working on it, but that doesn't mean much yet. We'll see. Like, this could end up being a new deck if we at least rattle off a couple wins with it. So I'm excited to actually see it in action. He's been playing it a lot on Magic Online for the last week, and this is its first, real test to see if it has legs in the format.
Yeah. It sounds like both of our teams had that dynamic where, like, each player was bringing their own brew that they were really excited about, and the other two teammates were just like, yeah, maybe you can play that. Maybe if we're up like 2-0 or something, we'll let you play that. But
the opposite happened with us, where Seth was like, I don't think we're ever going to actually select Black White unless we play it for the first round. And we're like, yeah, whatever, go for it. I wanted to lead with Lantern, thinking Nassif, being from Europe, might lead with that or Colorless Eldrazi. And I was right on that. I thought maybe he'd take his shots and go to sleep since it's so late in the
okay, so you're referencing the time change, that it's like 4 in the morning for Nassif. Yeah, that makes sense.
That had nothing to do with it?
That actually was one of his original conditions for being on the team. He's like, yeah, I want to be able to play first every night and then just go to sleep, which we said, okay, that's fine. But actually, he's just been like so excited to like stay up and spectate and be part of the team that he hasn't even been going to sleep after his turn is over. I
didn't know how exciting this was going to be until we played a couple weeks ago, and right when it started, I was just like high energy and having a whole lot of fun playing the whole night, like running out to the living room and watching it with my fiance and running outside and running back in. I haven't really won much yet, but at least I'm a good cheerleader for the team.
Yeah. Well, if Nassif can win 3 matches in a row, there's nothing to say that Brian can't win 3 matches in a row. So we are still very much in the thick of things here. Also, as we mentioned, Hollow One was our deck that we really felt good about. So if that gets eliminated, then things get a lot more dicey. But we got to see what happens. So let's head down to the match and see what Gabe Nassif and Brian Braun-Duin can do for us. Welcome back to the Team Modern Super League. We're about to watch Gabriel Nassif, who so far is 3-0 with his Hollow One deck, against Brian Brown-Duin with Grixis Midrange, deck that he says he's been working on a lot and feels pretty good about for this evening. Brad, what do you think about the opening hands here?
They both seem bad in the particular matchup. Gabe doesn't have any of that explosiveness that we've seen earlier in the evening. Well, Brian's deck doesn't have any of its early cantrips or hand disruption, so I can see both players taking a mulligan with this, unless they've already capped.
Yeah, so one of the hallmarks of the Grixis deck is the Snapcaster Mage Kolaghan's Command sort of engine. Those two cards pairing together make sure that you never run out of gas in the mid-range, in the mid-game, but they can be a little bit clunky if they're like the first spells that you have to cast. You really want something like a Thought Scour or Lightning Bolt to get the wheels turning. So Brian's hand is pretty slow if he's not able to find a cheap play. But same thing is true on Nassif's side, so yeah, we'll see.
All right, well, Nassif, I guess, kept since it looks like he's on the play, and Brian's taking his scry right now. But that's exactly it. With Jace the Mind Sculptor showing up in the format, we've seen Bloodbright Elf take a huge jump as the better card. And one of the theories is that you want to have more hand disruption cards like Young Pyromancer, earlier things to force your opponent to react to make the Jace a higher impact card. Just being reactive hasn't really felt like the correct way to play Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah, that was a big part of actually both the Jace decks that we brought this evening, Logan's blue-black deck and my Teamer Moon deck, unlike the sort of like big unwieldy blue-white decks where you're going like land nothing, then trying to play Jace, these decks are sort of like lower to the ground where you're trying to fight one for one and make sure you have a little bit of like a cleaner board when you play Jace. Definitely seems like Brian was going along the same logic. So I think the community at large is still trying to find the best home for Jace, which is clearly a super powerful card, but as you mentioned, hasn't really taken off yet.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that where having threats in play or threats that could potentially be played like Mendelian Click or Tarmogoyf from your Teamer Moon deck, even just the effect of Blood Moon, just forcing your opponent to not always have a strategy in mind or like a game plan in mind is how I feel like cards like Jace the Mind Sculptor will take advantage of games. That's why, both of us like to play mid-range decks for mainly that reason. We never want our opponents to have a clear strategy against us.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I do think that this keep. I thought Nassif. Oh, maybe he did in fact mulligan. Oh no,
he got Thoughtseize, so he lost his Hollow One. But oh man, if you know your top cards can be Burning Inquiry, that's a really good keep.
And one of the
casted and binned at least one Flamewake Phoenix, but still doesn't have too much exciting going on.
Yeah, and BBD now just has a Fatal Push and a bunch of cantrips, but removal spells aren't going to be that good unless BBD is able to find creatures that can stem the bleeding or get proactive. So BBD is really going to be trying to find something proactive because removal spells aren't going to interact favorably against a card like Bloodghast.
Man, Burning Inquiry has such a way of making you feel stupid. Like Brian fetched Blood Crypt on the first turn, which I'm sure was just clearly the right play based on what his hand was at the time. But then his hand got like completely reset, and now he has all blue cards and can't cast two blue cards in the same turn because of Blood Crypt. Best laid plans.
Oh, it's not the kind of Magic I enjoy playing. At least traveling to play. The deck is way better than I thought it was, though. I originally thought it would be, yeah. Except I've seen it also not be that great either. I don't know. It's so high variance that it does seem like the variance lands on it. Ooh, that's a lot of lands. This is just like last time when Brian was playing Grixis when we had 3 losses. It's just all lands every time.
Yeah, and he doesn't even have a Creeping Tar Pit to spend his mana on, so he's really hoping this Visions can scry him into something. I guess Snapcaster Mage would probably be one of the best things to find. Kolaghan's Command doesn't yet have a creature in the graveyard to rebuy, even though there are a lot of powerful draws that Brian's deck normally has access to at this stage of the game.
Yeah, I mean, Brian knows about, I guess the Lightning Bolt is an extra one, so that's a second copy. He knows about the Bloodghast, but not the Lightning Bolt. I guess this is going to take Lightning Bolt. And a card like Jace or Gourmet Giggler might be good, but it's got to be something fast. I feel like...
Wow. So, sorry to interrupt. I think what happened here is a pretty cool play from Brian. He scryed two sort of like marginal choices to the top, a Young Pyromancer and a Lightning Bolt, and then played a fetch land. So now he can sort of like effectively scry his own library. Like if Nassif takes his turn and it looks like the Young Pyromancer is going to be good enough, he can draw it. And if he feels like he needs to get lucky, he can shuffle it away.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I didn't see the Young Pyromancer. I saw the Bolt, but yeah, it does seem like that's a good 2 cards to draw, since Gabe is only going to be attacking for minimum 3. And that'll be it. But BBD's really going to have to turn a bunch of cantrips or Snapcaster Mage into more elemental tokens, or these Bloodghasts are going to be dealing way too much damage. Mm-hmm. I feel like this is the part of the game where Brian's deck has to have something in play by now.
This is what makes the Hollow One deck so tough to beat, is you have to contend with the really explosive, like turn 1 Hollow One hands, but then also it has this staying power from the Phoenixes and the Bloodghast where it will eventually kill you if you're not doing anything fast enough and powerful enough.
Yeah, it just has so much resiliency built into its top decks. Like an Angler can end up being 9 power, a land can bring back multiple Bloodghasts. Like I said, we really didn't bring enough decks to fight this one deck, and I'm gonna feel real stupid if we just get 4-0'd here. Maybe we should have let you have Scape Shift, but both decks could have annihilated us. I mean, the continuously drawing Bloodghast is not that bad, actually.
Yeah, and crucially, Brian's at 11, so it's not going to have haste yet.
All right, so we should see that Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, and Brian went through blockers, so he's not intending to trade with the Bloodghast just yet. I think he's just really gambling on finding something off the top of his library. Because if he just draws another land and has to say go, then suddenly he's in chump block mode, or trade. But trading with the Bloodghast not so effective. But if he can find Snapcaster, Kolaghan's Command, even something like a Serum Vision, then he can get a little bit of traction here.
Just a little though. I'm open for Jace into cantrips.
Yeah, that's the dream.
Not Swamp.
Oh, man.
Swamp is not. You're the only opponent that I actually feel was pained by that Swamp top deck.
Well, I mean, I want you guys to have a little bit of fun. It's probably your last match in the Team Modern Super League.
Well, I did believe this was the way we were going to go out. Seth might disagree, but the moment he said black-white smallpox was the moment I felt like we'd be watching for the rest of the weeks.
Yeah, I said to Seth when you were playing that I felt responsible for my team's first loss because it came down to 3-3, like the rubber match, and I had to play my Soul Sisters deck, which is just like my pet deck, and of course
what was your other option?
We could have had Logan on Grixis Death Shadow against Black Green, which would have been, probably a 50-50 or something like that.
Yeah, I felt the same. Last time we had Brian play Grixis Death Shadow, and maybe we should have just tried our Jeskai deck against Green Red Eldrazi, but we're just not that familiar with these new decks ever since the bannings.
Right.
Well, that is going to be the game. Bobson Dugnut is going to go down to Bob the Dog for a third time this evening.
So what does Brian have to improve the matchup after sideboarding?
A lot of cards I made him play to beat you with Jund. Entrancing Melody,
Keranos, yeah.
Is it Staticaster is actually pretty good at keeping keeping down the Bloodghast, and maybe one of the best sideboard cards in the format, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's very strong. It's a pretty wide range of decks.
But other than that, there's not a lot of counter spells to try to compete with the big mana decks. And generally, the game plan is not going to change for either player. I think we're going to see Brian try to have a little bit quicker of a draw, and Nassif hopefully not have one of his disgusting explosive starts that he's had. It feels like he gives each of us one game where he's just not on all cylinders.
It's true that all three matches have been game 3 so far.
Yeah, I don't know how I got there. I guess I luckily drew that one terminate.
I'm curious if Nassif is going to bring in those big game hunters, because I feel like one of the scariest cards from his perspective is a Gurmag Angler on the opposite side of the table, blanking the Hollow Ones, the Tassigurs. Right now he doesn't have any way to kill it in his deck.
Yeah, that does seem like one of the better ways for Brian to stabilize behind maybe even a Jace, or start getting that engine of Kolaghan's Command, Young Pyromancer, Snapcaster going.
But it's tough, because if you bring in the big game hunters, then you can lose to the Young Pyromancers.
That's true.
No, he hasn't changed anything yet. Maybe
is he sending us a message? Is this what we've come to see? Be like, I don't even need a sideboard. We've got 3 more matches. Let's give him a shot. All right, there they go. I'm hoping Brian can start rattling off some wins, because he was really excited about this deck all week.
Yeah, it certainly looks like a cool deck,
combining
a lot of the best elements of like several different successful archetypes. You know, Grixis Control, Grixis Shadow, Blue-Red Pyromancer.
Yeah, and he told me that he wanted a little bit of help with the strategy this week, and I did play a lot of Grixis, but it was standard Grixis, so I didn't actually try this out. I was casting 4 mana Planeswalkers, but it was Chandra. All right, this hand looks a little wonky, but it seems like a keep.
Oh, wow. Brian did not go for Inquisition on turn 1.
I mean, it's not... Generally, like, the turn 1 Hollowed One doesn't happen that often, does it?
Well, you have 8 1-mana, sort of engine cards that can be important to take away, but Nassif will need to find a Street Wraith if he's gonna get turn 1 Hollow One.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that strong of a keep from Brian, but what can you really do? I don't know if Collective Brutality is even that good in the matchup either.
Well, one thing that's kind of nice about it on the play is you can nab a turn 1 Flameblade Adept while potentially getting extra value.
All right, so if we know anything, we're going to see what Street Wraith. All right, so we have a Bloodghast. So no Street Wraith, which means no Hollowed One, and a relatively slow start. Plus that Staticaster should be able to do some damage.
Yeah, this is looking pretty good for Brian so far. He's probably going to have a pretty stable board until about turn 4 or so, when Nassif can start flashing back Faithless Looting.
Yeah, and that was a pretty strong draw. So Brian's going to be able to Inquisition, see that the hand is nothing, and be able to start digging for lands with that Serum Visions.
Yep.
So are you making the trek to Phoenix this weekend?
No, I'm staying home. You too?
Yes. No. Yeah, no, I'm staying home, yeah. I don't fly for non-standard events. That's just, I'm dead money in Modern. All right, so at least one land. Can't tell what the other card is, but Brian is going to function. Now we have to see if Gabe can draw something absurd to get out of this, because it does feel like his hand's a little weak.
He's looking at Scalding Tarn and Kolaghan's Command, we're being told.
Well, okay, yeah. I believe he's going to use that mana next turn no matter what. So I think we can just assume that we'll fetch and then potentially Snapcaster Mage, or is it Staticaster next turn anyway?
Yeah, it's somewhat interesting. Kolaghan's Command is very good against Hollow One, and you've seen it in Nassif's hands. So I could see him doing that technique that we saw last game, where you stack the Kolaghan's Command on top and then decide if you're going to shuffle it away or not.
Very true.
If you anticipate using a fetch land anyway, there's, it doesn't really cost you anything to keep the card on top.
But now with that bolt, BBD has the ability to use Is It Staticaster along with it to take down a Hollowed One as well. But yeah, I think it's a free roll just to keep the Kolaghan's Command on top anyway. All right. So
Nassif disconnected yet again. He's having a little trouble, but he'll be right back. In the meantime, Brad, I kind of wanted to ask you about the fifth deck that you guys didn't wind up playing, the Abzan Little Kid deck.
That was my suggestion that went haywire. I was just hanging out with Brian, and I was like, what about like the Little Kid Abzan deck you played a couple years ago in Charlotte at a GP, where he went pretty deep until finishing X3. Mainly, I just thought about a deck that played a ton of like Sigardas and Thruns against all the decks that you would show up with. I even wanted Cavern of Souls. I just wanted something that would just annihilate mid-range and control.
Mm-hmm.
And
smart against our team in particular.
Yeah, I also want to do some fun things. And there's a lot of decks that are just not going to be good choices against you guys. Like linear combo decks are never going to do well. So I thought that it would be pretty cool to play that deck, and Seth worked actually pretty hard on it, and even to the point where the Elspeth's in the main, because he would worship some opponents but get decked because there was no way to get through the board. And so that's the main deck, Elspeth. But I was hoping to see it in action, but it's just not good against Hollowed One.
Okay, yeah. So this deck had Voice of Resurgence, Lingering Souls, 2 Thrawn, 1 Sigarda, 2 Worship in the main deck to deal with the hexproof creatures. We actually were strongly considering banning that deck. We had a moment of panic where we're like, oh my god, no, our control decks can never beat a Voice of Resurgence. This Worship thing is going to get us, and we're all set to ban it. And I'm like, all right, you know what? Let's calm down for a second. This deck looks really exciting, but maybe it's just a brew and they haven't really tested it so much. Let's just ban the deck that we know is going to be good against us. But I don't know. It's certainly, the night's been really weird because Nassif's just been winning. But I think if we got to see full lineup versus full lineup, it would have been a much different and potentially more interesting night, because that deck would have been really good against Jund and our 2 control decks.
What's sad is Scapeshift and Hollowed One were just both really good against us, and if we could have gotten rid of both of them by banning and beating. I feel like the night would have been great, and instead now we have to hope that BBD can just run the field with this Grixis deck, but it does seem like there are some rough matchups out there.
Yeah.
Or at least having to beat you and Logan playing so many good decks. What's it feel like to potentially be the first team to not have 2 players play? I think that's kind of cool.
It's pretty nice. I tried playing last time. It didn't really work out so well. So now I'll try just, cheerleading and coaching.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a cool dynamic of the structure of the Super League that you can have such wildly different nights. I mean, a lot of the matchups that we've seen so far have been really like back and forth, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, like going all the way to match number 7. But then this one is totally different, with one deck just being like the star of the show.
Well, since Gabe is disconnecting, trying to get back in, do you mind if I just have a snack real quick while we wait? Is that cool?
Yeah, please.
All right, thank you.
That looks like a grapefruit there.
Oh well, it is.
I can't imagine that's a coincidence.
It is not. I actually left an hour before the show to go get it. I was going to use it to celebrate, like in round 7 when we beat you guys, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I might as well take a shot at it before it gets old.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it'll be a good luck charm too.
Well, we've got one of you to disconnect. So what? Talk to me about your Temur Moon deck. That was the most intriguing deck from the whole bunch, specifically because I like casting all the cards in it.
Yeah, it's fun. That's sort of a deck that I revisit every couple of years, and we weren't feeling too great. I mean, in a way, me and Logan and Nassif are not the best teammates because we all have similar taste in decks. Like, we all kind of really enjoy playing mid-range and controlling decks and think all the really linear decks are bad. So it can be hard to like actually assemble a suite of 6 decks that we're comfortable with. So Temur I looked to because I thought we could play that and a second Jace deck. Like, it surprisingly doesn't overlap that much with blue-black or blue-white control.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that, well, as it turned out, the lineup that you guys came with, Ancestral Vision and Blood Moon, I think are 2 super strong cards. And those are just 2 of, kind of the best cards in Modern, especially now that Jund is really popular. So combine that with the fact that you get this new and exciting card in Jace the Mind Sculptor, and I think it's a deck that has some chops these days.
For sure, yeah. I mean, and same goes with us. Like, they're especially with being able to ban. Like, you're most likely going to ban a deck like Boggles or something linear, so that and the other decks that you guys like, it's going to help that deck actually have good matchups. So I felt like you covered your bases pretty well for us, and we just threw some brews out there. Well, mostly Brian and Seth did. They asked me about decks, and I was just like, give me Jund and see how I do. And maybe I'll get one.
You guys did one-up me pretty good on not bringing Tron. I was like really adamant, like all decks need to be built to beat Tron, because I mean, I think you guys like probably knew for sure that we were going to bring Jund as one of our decks. And I know that you like Tron and have had success with it, especially Seth. So I was like, all right, just, seems like a slam dunk that they're going to bring Tron. And we registered more Crumble to Dusts than like I even had in my Magic Online collection. But yeah, no Tron, no big mana at all.
Yeah, we actually had four of your decks pegged. I don't know if it influenced any of our decisions, but we saw Logan with blue-black online a couple times, and Nassif was playing the Colorful Drowsy deck. And then I assumed Jund and Hollowed One. And so the 2 decks that actually just beat all of our decks are the ones that one of them that we assumed was going to show up. But
I wonder what you can even really do. Like, if your goal is to beat Hollow One, what deck do you bring?
Bring better decks and ban it. That seems like the obvious choice.
Okay, but what if you're going to like a Grand Prix or something, and you're going to face Hollow One? What should you do?
I have no idea. Like, I don't know, because this deck is somewhat new and it's high variance, and there's literal die rolls that are dependent besides the seeing who goes player draw. So I mean, I'm not really sure. I'm just glad that Seth's the one that has to figure it out. Like, I'm not the Modern player for any of the team events coming up, for the Pro Tour. That's a different department. I'm focusing on Legacy and Standard. I couldn't be happier, because this deck seems like a nightmare to figure out.
Yeah, I guess you guys did what you did do is bring Boggles, which has a great matchup against Hollow One, but maybe the particular format of the Super League where you get to ban one opposing deck, maybe that like really protects Hollow One, since its bad matchups are pretty like narrow band of decks. You can usually just ban their one deck that's gonna be good against Hollow One and take it from there.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think if you're being competitive here, which you should be, Hollow One should be in your gauntlet, but none of us really have played it. And like I said, I've been addicted to Standard recently, so I didn't even want to try to learn it. And maybe that was a mistake here because we are out. If I guess Nassif has 23 minutes to reconnect, or we get the match, right? Like, what are the rules? I didn't see it.
Seth was asking the same question. I'm not sure.
Was he? I feel like we get the win, right? Like, I mean, it might be a pity win, but it's a win.
How do we even know Nassif's disconnected? I mean, it's within his range to just think for 8 minutes about returning a Bloodghast. You never know.
or well, at this point he's not on Magic Online, so it could be within his range to have to figure out his password again. I could see that.
Yeah.
I mean, the highs and lows in Nassif are he has a spectrum of decisions. I've seen him do some of the most masterful things and then completely miss something on board and lose the game.
Yep.
But what's your next event?
I'm playing a team SCG Open actually with Chris Pikula and Jarvis Yu. That's was sort of like sort of out of the blue that came together, but that should be a ton of fun. And then I'm doing coverage at Grand Prix Seattle after that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll be at both of those events actually.
Cool. Who's your squad for the SCG Open?
Brian and Todd Anderson.
All right.
I'll be on Standard, Brian on Modern, and Todd on Legacy. He's been testing with various Brainstorm decks, and I think there's a possible chance that all three of us show up with Grixis. I shouldn't give away too much information, but what format are you playing?
Modern.
Okay. Pikula's on Standard?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's pretty surprising. Like, it really says something, I think, good about the Modern format that Brian would be playing something other than Legacy. But I mean, maybe also with Top being banned, it changes the equation. But Brian must really like Lantern and potentially this Grixis mid-range deck as well.
Yeah, I think this is just his fun side project at the moment. He does like playing Lantern a lot. I think it's a good choice for Modern. It's really tough to. It's not as good as it was prior to the unbannings. All right, we're back. We don't have a hand, but we've seen a Bloodghast and a fetch land. It is tough though for picking formats in teams that are heavily weighted in certain areas. Like, I'm not the Standard player for the Pro Tour because I'm on the team with one person that has a higher win percentage than I do.
So who will you play with in the Pro Tour?
Seth and Corey, my brother.
Okay.
And then Brian will be with Mueller and Blohan to finish off the Genesis squad. And I don't have to ask you. I know who you're playing with.
Yeah.
Everyone does.
Wow. So we had seen Nassif sort of cleaned out. His hand was just a hollow one, but he had the Bloodghast in his graveyard, which he returned, and then drew for the turn Gurmag Angler. So,
Did that just happen?
He might have. The only bad part of it is he had to delve away his Faithless Looting, which was would have been pretty valuable given that he's a little bit flooded. But I'm sure he's just thrilled to get a body, a warm body or a cold body, as it were, onto the table. And Brian doesn't have the tools, at least not in his hand, to easily answer it. He's going to 2-for-1 with Collective Brutality and Lightning Bolt,
which is fine since we know that Nassif only has the Brutality. Oh, there's an Inquiry.
Oh man! And now, of course, Burning Inquiry just completely.
Oh, we got our own fish.
Made even more exciting by the fact that we can't see Nassif's hand.
Yes. But there's a hollow one in the graveyard, so that feels good at least. And I don't know if he had both those lands. I feel like they could take a second to get him back online for hands, but it makes this more brutal for me to not see it, in all honesty.
So this would be total Nassif if it's like resolve the Burning Inquiry, then like think for a while, attack for 2, then like post combat hollow one.
Yeah, after discarding one.
Yeah. Looks like Collective Brutality with just one mode.
Yeah, just taking the Fatal Push, and down to 2 cards. And I'd like to say I remember a different land, but maybe not. Ooh, double fish. Can we do both?
Yeah, I do think Nassif still has he might have Blood Crypt and Bloodstained Mire still in hand. It's been so long, with the disconnection that I can't remember too well, but I'm sure Brian remembers which lands he saw.
I don't think it's going to matter. I think that BBD is going to double fish here. And
yes, the full 10 cards in the graveyard, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. Yep, and nothing much in the Hollow One deck that can beat this. Nassif's best scenario would be to do a discard spell and Madness a Big Game Hunter.
Or just casting one, right?
Yeah. Just casting one would be good. Okay.
Obviously.
All right. A key to this game, I think, is going to be that creeping tar pit.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like it could shape up to be a close race, but just getting 3 unblockable damage every turn, putting Nassif into chump block mode a little bit earlier. I think the tar pit could be a difference maker.
Yeah, it is interesting. Does Brian want to run out the Thoughtseize now? Because Gabriel Nassif does have 4 Big Game Hunters on the sideboard, and BBD doesn't know if he brought all 4 in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just going to go for the more passive line. And depending on what that last card is, BBD might hold back or might get aggressive. I'm not quite sure. Since it was a Flamewake Phoenix that was discarded, I'm assuming that the last card is not relevant. All right, going to play more defensively.
It's definitely showing a lot of respect to choose the Thoughtseize over the tar pit there. Effectively a 5-point life swing in a relatively close game.
Well, I think it just becomes a blowout if Nassif had another Big Game Hunter, and with access to 4, it just feels like the play you have to make. The last card, it does swing the race.
So we could see Nassif attack with everything, could see him attack with nothing, or could see him attack with the 2 Bloodghasts. It's tempting if you attack with the Big Game Hunter, you force through extra damage, but in a close race situation, the chump block of the Big Game Hunter might be relevant, so you don't necessarily want to give it away at a low cost there. We do believe Nassif has another land in hand, so he doesn't mind losing a Bloodghast. If he had attacked with the Big Game Hunter, he would be losing to the board because 2 attacks for 8 makes 16.
Yeah, all right.
So you got to think Brian's just attacking with the tar pit this turn and leaving back the angler. Oh man, the fact that Nassif had a fetch land means he can attack pretty freely with the Bloodghast. This game's getting interesting.
Yeah, and BBD is going to have to find damage here. Yeah, and this Collective Brutality could have a big swing next turn, but to do so, you'd have to imagine that he'd be discarding a card. So I don't know If I like, it's a tough turn. An attack for 8 is quite aggressive, but then BBD would be having to top deck something. All right, he's taking that line. So here comes 8 damage, and Nassif's going to be under the decision if he respects the card in BBD's hand and chump blocks or does not.
I really hope he chump blocks because the Collective Brutality could take away his ability to block next turn.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, the nightmare scenario would be like he takes 8 here, then Brian draws some other effective card and can like double spell the next turn. Or I mean, even just escalating the brutality for the 2 points of life drain can change the equation here. So I would like to see Nassif chump block, keep his life total high, and then just try to win with the Bloodghasts.
So now with 13 life to work with, it's going to be very difficult for Brian to win in 2 turns, unless if Nassif draws brick, BBD does win this game. Since that Collective Brutality will gain him 2 life, and the life loss will be relevant.
Nassif does have a lot of good draws here. Pretty much any non-land is effective. But looks like it was either a land or some kind of removal spell that doesn't kill the Angler.
Mm-hmm. So here I just like draining with the Collective Brutality, holding the Snapcaster up and attacking for 5. Not in that particular order. Sequence it better, but...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, Brian is now beating the board, and Nassif needs 1 or more spells to get back in the game.
Luckily, he has a deck just for the job.
A Bloodghast or a Phoenix does not do it because the Snapcaster can block.
Yeah, a Delve creature of his own would be able to help. Big game hunter would be almost just lethal. Since I don't know what Brian would have as a top deck in this current board state. Don't cast spells.
Could be a Goblin Lore, Brutality.
With 1 card. Okay, reveals hand and loses 2 life. That Snapcaster is gonna force another game.
So in other words, Nassif going up to 8, all he can do is attack with the Bloodghast. The Snapcaster will block 1 to keep Brian alive, and then Angler plus Tar Pit makes 8. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we are going to see at least 1 more game of Hollow One. Nassif just making sure BBD sees it. See, like, I personally would have just conceded to that, but I guess, like, because you're on the team, like, you have to go for every single inch. Like, you don't want to be the one that's on Reed Duke never concedes team and give up that slight percentage.
Yeah, you're lucky I didn't play against the Lantern deck.
Oh, I even thought that was getting bad.
I appreciated Nassif's. I thought he conceded at the exact right moment when he was losing to Lantern. I mean, he could maybe even have afforded to concede 1 turn earlier.
I agree. I mean, it is a show after all. That was starting to get brutal.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All right, so now we get to see what is this a strategy you're implementing? The disconnect now we can guarantee that we're not giving BBD information. We're not feeding him.
Definitely not a strategy that we thought about ahead of time. knows something I don't. Looks like Brian is not moving to change his sideboarding, which he doesn't have too many super exciting cards. I mean, you could consider a second Jace. Thoughtseize is okay. But yeah, it looks like he's fairly limited.
Like you said earlier, this is what makes Hollow One such a powerful deck, is that you want to interact with cards like Adept on turn 1, but at the same time, you don't want to draw all these removal spells like Fatal Push and Lightning Bolt against all the recursion creatures.
Wow, Brian actually, he did like kind of the opposite of what I would have expected. He cut his Fatal Pushes when he was on the draw to bring in Thoughtseizes. My inclination would be, I want a Thoughtseize on turn 1 to try to nab the Burning Inquiry, but I want the Fatal Push when I'm like fighting from behind and need to double spell and protect myself. But based on also the way we saw Brian play that game too, he elected not to cast Inquisition on turn 1. So maybe he thinks that turn 2 is a better spot to use the hand disruption spells.
Or he's just going with, sometimes the strategy is when you're on the draw, I mean, he is keeping the brutalities and does have terminates and Kolaghan's commands. But if Nassif doesn't lead on Adept, then you don't want a ton of removal in your clogged up in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
So
true. There's also something to be said of like, you let them resolve the Burning Inquiry or Faithless Looting, then you nab the Delve creature or the Hollow One. So in that sense, Thoughtseize could be pretty effective.
Yeah, and if you're on the play, there's a better chance of getting a Pyromancer or an Isle Spellbomb active, but on the draw, you just need to be as aggressive as possible to attack the great draws from this deck. Especially, I mean, BBD might be feeling it from game 3 last time against Nassif, where he just wants to stop as many of the disgusting draws as possible.
But it begs the question, do you want Thoughtseize against somebody who's going to draw the best card for every turn anyway?
Well, you got to try, right? That's why we show up.
Yeah.
Like
Well, here we have it, game number 3. Potentially Nassif going for the clean sweep here, but if not, we're going to have to send either me or Logan against Brian's Grixis deck.
This could be the final game for Genesis on the Team Modern Super League. All right, good opener from Brian.
Yeah, most definitely. Nassif quickly kept though, so we'll see what the Hollow One deck can come up with on turn 1. Brian has an excellent hand here, but it's not one that's super well equipped to handle turn 1 Hollow One. He's going to have to wait till, I guess he has Terminate.
Yeah, like it seems like he's got a ton of the removal and a Thoughtseize, so I feel like this is the best hand he could dream for dealing with the big threats, especially if they don't come down on turn 1.
Yeah,
even as the Blackleaf Cliffs.
Maybe we want to hope that Nassif has more of a Bloodghast, Flamewake Phoenix.
No, we don't. We don't want to hope for that. What are you talking about? We don't want to hope for any of that. We want to hope that Burning Inquiry is really bad. That's what we're rooting for.
Or we can also hope that Nassif casts Burning Inquiry and Brian just discards all his lands and dies in painful, embarrassing fashion like that.
I mean, if that was going to happen to our team, I wish it happened to me. Like Brian and Seth put a lot of work into this. They tested a bunch. They've been playing a lot of Modern. I wanted to go out that way. I also wanted, since this was the deck BBD was working on, he was like, you could play this in our 3rd round. I was like, if we're going to go down, I want you to be the captain with your pet deck going down with the ship. I'll just play my Jund and hope it works out. But so this is it. Back against the wall. I'm guessing that they're trying to get Gabe's hand right now.
Yep.
Unless he is disconnected again. He likes his camera time, doesn't he?
I guess so, yeah. Definitely when you watch him play like on the Pro Tour, you can tell he's relishing every moment.
Well, I'm in that boat with him. I don't know if it's age or if it's that the theory that Paul Reitzel and Owen talked about once, where it's Magic's about seeing the puzzles, not solving them. Like the more puzzles that are possible, which means at home, for anyone that hasn't heard this theory, every game has multiple decisions, and each decision is its own puzzle. And the more you play Magic, the more you'll see them. But I've hit Nassif's camp where I take a long time to think now, and I don't know if it's age or that I'm getting to that next level as a Magic player. But we have a game starting. That's not.
I'm definitely in the. I take the approach of like every decision, no matter how small it is, matters and is worth your time to consider. Little stuff like, I mean, how you see Nassif fetch his land before cycling the Street Wraith, like that doesn't matter a lot, but it's the type of thing that a really proficient player is gonna decide like carefully whether you fetch first or second.
Okay, not another. There isn't a second one.
So really good turn one for Nassif. He was able to discard a Bloodghast and put a Hollow One into play. So against Brian's strong hand, it's not, far from a guaranteed win, but it's the start that Nassif wanted.
Yeah, the Bloodghast is going to chip away for some early damage. And
you were good to point out the Blackcleave Cliffs here. I mean, it's the fact that Nassif's going to get a clean hit with the Hollow One and has the Bloodghast coming back. It matters a lot that Brian is at 20 instead of being at 17. I mean, these things add up.
For sure. But
I guess
what's going to add up are
18
these
instead of 15.
Yeah, what's going to add up are these Faithless Lootings. I feel like BBD is going to it feels like already because of a turn one Hollow One, BBD is going to be continuously playing catch up this whole game while Bloodghast chips away, Faithless Looting refuels, and then once BBD is down to like anywhere from 4 to 8 life, it just feels like this deck's going to be able to have a very powerful turn.
Yeah, so he would love to pick up one of his 2 Nile spell bombs.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of those Faithless Lootings and potentially the Bloodghast too.
Oh, wow. This is fast.
We saw Brian took away a Flameblade Adept with the Thoughtseize, but Nassif had another one.
That Pluto Delta draw is also very clutch for BBD. It's going to allow him to fetch basics.
Okay.
And be able to cast all his spells.
Yep.
It just depends on what he actually wants to cast this turn. Odds are it's terminate on Hollow One, but that means that Kolaghan's Command can't pick off 2 different threats. So if this Flameblade Adept gets up to 4 power, we could see a Lightning Bolt over the terminate.
It's a great point. And it is getting up to 4 power. So Nassif discarded 2 lands and a Burning Inquiry. Have to imagine that was a pretty good discard for him.
Yeah.
You can be sure that Nassif's going to attack before playing out anything else and really put Brian to the test of whether he's going to make that play that you mentioned of bolting the Adept.
Yeah, there it comes. I have a bad feeling about this turn. I see an Angler or something coming. Nope.
Basic Mountain.
That's good. Good enough for me. Good enough for now.
Mm-hmm. And we didn't get to see Nassif's sideboard, so we don't know how many Lightning Bolts and Collective Brutalities he kept in his deck. But boy, Lightning Bolt would be a good card to have here.
Oh, yeah. Well, now we're getting to this weird spot where Nassif's going to always have to have a land to bring back this Bloodghast, but these Snapcasters plus Kolaghan's Commands might be able to at least tread water. It's nowhere near a good game or board position for BBD yet. But if Nassif has like big game Hunter Strand in his hand for a while, we could see no additional pressure being used.
So what do you think is going to happen this turn? Do you think Brian is going to... I mean, I suppose it makes sense to use the Kolaghan's Command, right, rather than doing a Snapcaster move, but do you think he'll kill the Bloodghast or try to get value somewhere else?
I think at this point it just has to be preserve the life total, kill both creatures. 2 fetch lands in hand is already 5 life. If that Bloodghast deals damage, that's Lightning Bolt range immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's something to be said about these Snapcasters actually putting damage on Nassif in the next couple turns. Bolt plus double Snapcaster Mage if the board gets cleared. Oh no, not a Phoenix.
Well, it can die to the Kolaghan's command, and if Nassif doesn't have any other creatures, it won't be coming back. But it does mean the Bloodghast connects for a clean hit this turn.
My cat is being annoying. You gotta go. All right, so yeah, I believe that the Phoenix and Hollowed One will be taken down, and next turn, BBD has at least 2 spells up, but is in Lightning Bolt range. Did we see any Lightning Bolts, though, after Sideboard? I feel like that might be a card that I could see Nassif taking out. That's maybe wishful thinking.
There's the young Pyromancers to worry about, and I mean, something's gotta go if he's bringing in a couple of big game hunters.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really know exactly what the specifics of his configuration are.
So this one, I don't think he can play around it. I think he's going to have to use his spells, get Snapcasters into play, start attacking with them.
Okay, so Goblin Lord discards Flamewake, Phoenix, Tasigur, Faithless Looting. So
No,
the fact that
a Bloodghast, actually, that Flamewake died last turn.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Yeah, that Bloodghast is big. It has haste. The fact that Nassif cast that before anything else indicates to me that he probably didn't have Lightning Bolt, because you wouldn't risk discarding it randomly.
Well,
So-
does he ever? I thought he gets to pick. I thought that was Nassif's secret ability. All right, here we go.
Untapped land is interesting too.
All right, does BBD Snap Bolt block? Snap Bolt block. Hope to draw Nile Spellbomb. Yeah, that's the play. Now to see if it's going to work.
Yeah, I'm really curious why Nassif played his land untapped. Is it just a second Goblin Lore post-combat? A Brutality, maybe?
There's a lot of options. It could just, I don't know. Could be an Angler, but yeah, I guess you just played here. All right, Brutality, not discarding, taking the Terminate.
Not discarding makes sense because, I mean, even a land is really strong here to bring back the 2 Bloodghasts.
Mm-hmm.
Brian fetches down to 1. All right. So the Scalding Tarn in hand is turned off. The Terminate is in the graveyard, though the hand cam hasn't been updated. It's Snapcaster Mage against a couple of Bloodghasts in the graveyard.
All right.
Nassif can hang on. I mean, on the board, the Snapcaster can deal with the. Oh, I'm sorry. I think it turned out the Brutality was 2 life drain, so the Terminate is still in hand.
Said target opponent, so I thought it was
Mm-hmm.
looking, but it wasn't. Well, here's every Grixis controls player's nightmare, being at a low life total against Bloodghast, which means every card is good. Every card can be relevant.
Start with Flashback, Faithless Looting. Yeah, I mean, it's tough when like a land, your opponent having a land is like, you can barely beat that, and it's one of the best case scenarios.
Yep. Just like the Bloodghast, she's back. She just wants
That's a real like James Bond villain cat that you got there, Brad.
Oh, yes.
It's like, stroke my white cat menacingly.
Menacingly, as we're just getting annihilated. I feel like this is a end of the movie James Bond cat, not a beginning movie. This is when we lost. All right, this is a really long time to think. What could his hand be to think this long on? Let's guess. Let's take a guess on what his hand could possibly be, because it's.
I don't know. I mean, I guess if he has the random discard spells, those could be tough to evaluate in this situation. He could be deciding whether to Madness the big game hunter.
Yeah. Goblin Lord.
It looks pretty good just getting a free 1/1 against an opponent at 1 life, but he's not allowed to do it. And he didn't have a land.
Oh, it's gotta be Bolt. It's Upkeep Bolt.
Maybe he has the Bolt. He was checking the deck list for counter spells. Oh man, and what's going through Brian's head right now?
That he's got the Bolt. That's gotta be what's going on in his head. Bolt snap Bolt BBD. Yeah, there it is. There it is.
Wow.
The bolt that says goodbye.
Oh man. So that's it. That's Team Pomplamoose taking down Genesis. Logan Nettles and I didn't even have to play. Nassif with his Hollow One deck just ran the tables. So yeah, I mean, condolences, Brad. You guys fought hard. You're tough opponents, but
it's okay. I'll accept this loss. I felt like it was coming the moment. If there's actually a chat thread from earlier where Seth's like, I really want to play Black White, and BBD's like, go for it. And I'm like, I too want to get eliminated in this event. So we knew there was a good chance by playing some fun decks.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a super enjoyable event, a super enjoyable league. We're really glad to have you guys here, and it was fun playing with you. We don't know how far we'll be advancing. I mean, this was an elimination match for us, as will next week be also. But yeah, I mean, we'll keep it going for as long as we can.
No, good luck. There's some good teams out there, and a lot of teams that maybe were undervalued but are doing really well with a lot of good decks or strategies. I think a lot of people brought their A game to this league.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and you know, there's sure to be a lot of surprises still in store for the rest of the Modern Super League.
I mean, I'm going to call it right now. I believe that the WotC R&D team is going to take it all down. They're all just a lot of old players that are good, that are just thirsty for some competition.
Yeah, they beat us the first week.
Mm-hmm.
So the last thing we have for you guys tonight is a winner interview. We're going to have Randy and Gabe Nassif. Randy's going to present him with a Nobel Prize, probably a briefcase full of money and, you know, the key to the city of Seattle. But we're going to cut to commercials, and we'll be back with Randy and Nassif.
Need the latest Magic the Gathering singles for Constructed, casual cards for the kitchen table, or sealed product for a draft night with your friends? CoolStuffInc.com has what you're looking for. With an extensive selection of singles, sealed, and supplies, free shipping on orders of $100 or more, a 25% buy list bonus, and our ever-popular customer rewards program, CoolStuffInc.com is a one-stop shop for all your Magic the Gathering needs.
Rivals of Ixalan is available in stores. Stake your claim. The Golden City of Araska has been found. Build your forces with new vampires, merfolk, pirates, and dinosaurs, and gain the city's blessing. Visit rivalsofixalan.com to find out more.
Check out.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Randy Bueller, and I'm joined by Gabe DeCeef. You did it, buddy. Ran the table. 4 straight wins.
Yeah, Hollow One, pretty busted deck. Man, it was crazy. I was so nervous. I was shaking. I don't know, it was me being tired. I honestly, playing at the Mox, I wasn't that nervous. Maybe the very first game of the tournament, I was like, making sure I wasn't misclicking and stuff, but I was nervous. I started playing bad against Brad. I literally wanted to take that pulse, and my brain said, okay, pulse, and then I clicked Kolaghan's command.
Oh,
and
wow.
I forgot about the Grudge in the graveyard, and I cast Hollow One instead of cycling it. That was really bad. And I don't know if I think I played okay against BBD in the last match. I think, besides those mistakes against Brad, I played pretty good, but I was super nervous. My hands are shaking. I don't know. Yeah,
Wow.
Crazy.
It was quite a crazy 3.5 hours. We go from you're still streaming. Did you even know you were up to play? I saw that you were streaming 15 minutes before showtime.
Yeah, I forgot we had to be on. No, I know I was going to be first to play. I forgot I had to be on like 15 minutes before. And yeah, also I want to apologize to Team Genesis and everyone for the internet issues and kind of anticlimactic the last game. Especially my draw was really good and his draw wasn't so good, and you guys had to wait like 10 minutes. So sorry about that. Not really my fault.
Yeah, no, I don't think any of us thought it was your fault. I'm glad we were able to slog through it. We got to play the games out to their natural conclusion. I was going to add that to my list of quite the adventurous 3.5 hours. The internet went out a couple of times. It was actually funny watching because we didn't have your hand cam for the last game. So sounds like your hand was pretty busted. Maybe walk us through what was going on in those last couple of games because we couldn't see from your perspective.
So second game against BBD, my opening hand was kind of mediocre. I think I kept Looting, Hollow One, Brutality, 4 lands. So on the draw, I can draw, Street Trace. I can draw a 1-drop. I can draw a lot of things. I didn't really draw that well. The game was incredibly close. I thought I was going to lose, then I thought I was going to win. I thought I was going to lose, then I thought I was going to win when I drew Brutality the last turn. Because even if he drew a removal spell, if he kills my Bloodghast, I just bring it back and it's exactly 6 damage. But he drew Snapcaster Mage, which was, nothing I could have. I guess if I had known he had exactly Snapcaster Mage, I could have cast Brutality, then Burning Quarry, hoping to mid one of my last Bloodghast, but I think I made the right play. Just kind of crazy game. And then third game, my opening hand was super busted. But if he had like Staticaster, he only has 1. But if he had Staticaster, I might have actually won him the game.
Yeah, Nihil Spellbomb looks like it might have been able to hit your Bloodghast too if he'd been able to time it just right. Not that he drew it, but
yeah, my opening hand was busting. My opening hand was like perfect, like lands, Street Trace, Looting, Hollow One, Bloodghast, Lore, and another good it was not double Hollow One turn 1, but almost perfect.
Yeah, when we saw you discarded a Faithless Looting to the first Faithless Looting, we're like, wow, his hand must be really good.
Yeah, I had a couple choices. I'm not sure I played everything correctly. And the last turn was really awkward because I looted trying to find a land. Oh no, I actually drew Bolt for my turn, and he was at 1. So he has Counter Squall in his sideboard. I don't know if he brought Domain, maybe not, probably not, but I'm like, all right, I can't really lose now, I think. He has to keep 2 mana up for the rest of the game. And then I loot into Hollow One and the 1/1 Madness and have 1 mana up. But I feel like the only way I can lose is if I, keep the Bolt, tap out for Hollow One, my last mana, and then he kind of kills Hollow One, untap, Brutality, my hand, plus Drain, and all of a sudden I lost my guy, I lost my Bolt. I'm still in really good shape because I have 2 Bloodghasts, but so it was kind of awkward that I discarded the 1/1 Madness, didn't pay the cost, but what he's supposed to do, he just had to hope I didn't have Bolt, I guess. He could have just read Counter Squall for the rest of the, keep 2 mana up for the rest of the game. So he was super screwed at that point.
Yeah, as soon as you declined to play the Madness, Brad was like, oh, he drew the Bolt.
You
Yeah.
knew exactly what. The only reason you wouldn't pay Madness on Big Game Hunter there
Yeah,
versus
of
an
course.
opponent at 1 is if you're holding Lightning Bolt. So we could see there was no counter squall.
That was crazy. All my matches, right? 2-1, I think. All four.
Oh, they all
all
went to
four
game 3, didn't they?
matches. I
Yeah,
think they.
that's right.
And they were all like, I mean, thought I was not loving my chances down the game. I felt like game 1 against Thess is like I should be a pretty big favorite. And then once he gets Leyline, it's kind of funny. I'm actually like 5-0 against turn 0 Leyline.
Wow.
Like I remember playing the mirror match, and they've had Leyline turn 0 3 times, and I've won every game. So it's good, but in a weird way. I mean, it's funny because I always hate on Leylines. I think they're kind of bad cards, and obviously they're not that bad, but it's kind of crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just so nervous. I'm still nervous.
Awesome. Well, look, you got the job done. You guys get to keep playing. You will be in. You'll be playing for a spot in the top 4 next month. We got to figure out what the rest of the bracket looks like, obviously. But you guys are 1-1. You'll be playing against a 1-1. Let's look at the schedule. So tomorrow night, come back because last week's game got postponed. It's going to be Team Madison versus International Alliance. That's our other elimination match. That is going to happen tomorrow. So special Wednesday night edition of Team Modern Super League. Same time, 5 o'clock Pacific time. And then you see the last 2 matches that we've got to round out the month of March. CFB plays against Play Design for a bye into the top 4, and Minvi plays against the Brew Crew for the other bye into the top 4.
So it's a kind of double elimination bracket. Like you get to lose once, and if you're 2-0, you get the bye.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
we have to win in 1 month to make it to the top 4, or else we're out.
Precisely.
Okay.
Yep. You'll be playing against another one. There'll be 4 1-1s at the end of these 2 rounds. So the 2-0s get buys into the top 4, and then the 1-1s play for those other 2 spots.
That's a good system. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it feels pretty clean. I like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, hats off to you guys. You can keep playing. Now, how broken is this Hollow One deck? Like you just crushed 3 very good players. 4 solid decks. Maybe not all 4 decks were super solid, but is Hollow One just the best deck in Modern right now? Is it your go-to deck in Modern right now?
So my history here with Hollow One is watching Reed playtest. It started when I watched Reed playtest his quarterfinal matchup. He was getting demolished. Like he won 1 out of 10 games at some point. He won like maybe 2 out of 20 games at some point. I was like, wow, that deck's for real. I'd played against it on Moto. I was never super impressed.
Yep.
So I was like, got back home, started playing it. I was going to a GP. I played it at the GP, and I felt like, I had an edge over the field. I felt like it was a clear best deck. I went 8-4 after my buys, which is not great. Had a couple tough matchups, couple close losses, but still felt good about the deck. And then at the Mox, I was on the fence between Hollow One and that blue-red deck.
Yeah.
And the blue-red deck, I was like crushing online. I was like winning 9 out of 10 matches. So I went with Jace. I went with blue-red. Didn't go well, but Brock went 0-7 somehow. Or I guess he got super unlucky. He played Hollow One at the Mox, and I was like, man, you're one of the best drafter. I think you have the best deck in the field. You're gonna do great. And he finished dead last, so I felt kind of bad, And right now, I actually haven't played Hollow One since the GP. I think basically when I was testing for the Mox, I was like, all right, I have Hollow One in my back pocket. If I don't find anything, I know it's a good deck. And then I started playing that blue-red deck, and it was doing really good. So I was like, all right. Actually, it was like one of the worst hours of my life before submitting the deck. I had the choice between the 2. I was still debating, an hour before decks were due if I should, and it was such torture. And obviously now I kind of wish in hindsight I submitted Hollow One, but whatever. I'm not sure it has a good jump matchup. I beat Brad. I've been doing well, but Logan and Reed seem to think that John is okay against it. A ton of people play Hollow One online. I play against it like once or twice a day online. So yeah, it's really good. I don't know if it's the best deck. I don't know how it actually lines up against John. I mean, I've been winning against it, but Brock lost a bunch against it. Logan and Reed both beat it, I think, in the mock. So it's a good deck for sure. Yeah.
Maybe not the best deck, but certainly one of the tier 1 options. And boy, you crushed with it.
Thanks.
We haven't the previous weeks of this Team Modern Super League, they've all gone to at least match 6. We've never had anybody take the night off. Like, all 6 players have been forced to play every match. They all went to at least round 6. We had a pair of 4-2s and a pair of 4-3s. Now you're just like 4-0. Reed and Logan get to watch.
Yeah, it must have been nice to be Reed and Logan tonight. I kind of wish I was like him. I'm sure I'm not going to be able to sleep for another hour at least, but oh well. Good problem to have, I guess.
Good problem to have indeed. Yeah, got that.
But I mean, all the matches were super close. Honestly, I could have lost like maybe the last match. Like, he barely won game 2 and game 3. My hand was, but even last match was he had drawn like his right sideboard cards.
Yep.
The jump matchup were super close. I think that set was the closest one. I mean, the Lantern my draw was really good. His draw was really good. I was like I could have easily.
The Lantern match looked super close. He was very close to stabilizing. I mean, from his perspective, he came up with the miracle line to beat the board. The last card, I probably didn't feel close from your perspective because you knew you had the Ancient Grudge the whole time.
Yeah, I knew. I was actually thinking about it because I was like, all right, I think for him to win, he has to like Thoughtseize himself down to no cards or have exactly like another mark. So I was debating even on the last turn if I should get the mark somehow, but it didn't feel right. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. It was weird when they sent like Lantern right away. I actually felt kind of good about my Lantern matchup, but I guess they had nothing better. Well,
I think that BBD feels like he can beat Ancient Grudges. Like, you like your Lantern matchup because you have 4 Ancient Grudge on the board, right?
Yeah, 4 Grudges and an Explosives and maybe Molten Rain. I don't know how good Molten Rain is. I think maybe on the play it's okay.
Yeah, I think the way that turns out is if he can get a Grafdigger's Cage,
he only has one
Ancient Grudge. Yeah, well, he's got 4 whirs,
and he usually has to use whir for bridge. I don't know. I feel pretty good. He has to like have it, like not get traced, and then he has to beat 4 Grudges and Explosive. But it was super close. I mean,
yep.
He won one of the sideboard games in the last one. If I didn't draw like almost perfect, he probably was. So yeah, I guess it is. Another card that I don't have, but it's actually I heard it's kind of good in matchup is like Grim Levimancer because usually he can't afford to like leave. I don't know if he leaves in Witchbane Orb. I don't know if you remember if he boarded out. I guess against me he hasn't. But sometimes they have to board out the Witchbane Orb and you just play Grim Levimancer and it's like another card they have to beat. But yeah, no, it was close. It was close.
It was close. It was fun. But at the end of the day, you got the job done.
Yeah, closest 4-0 ever.
Closest 4-0 ever. That sounds about right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us, Gabe. Thanks for staying up and slogging through the internet and playing.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure.
We'll let you see if you can get some sleep. And everybody watching, more Super League tomorrow. So come back. It'll be International Alliance against Team Madison about 20 hours from now. So we're going to call it a night. We will see you guys then. Bye.
All right, good night, guys. Thanks for watching.
I want you to lift me up so high, a place that no one's ever